evening. I hereby call the Palm Springs regular City Council meeting of May 9th, 2024 to order. We'll start with our pledge and give a little background. Dr. Terry Kedover, working with Police Chief Andy Mills, has brought the international program Do the Right Thing to the Palm Springs area. This program recognizes each month youth in our community who set an example. Students recognized in this program are leading the Pledge of Allegiance at our City Council meetings. This program was actually recently chosen by the Riverside County Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Awards to receive the esteemed Community Delinquency Prevention Award. So today's pledge will be lit. We're proud to have Daryl Wright, who is a third grader at Catherine Finchy. Daryl is a strong foundation in the school community, always ready to lend a helping hand and offer words of encouragement to those who need it. Daryl stands up to bullying and injustice, creating a warm and supportive environment where everyone feels valued and accepted. Daryl has genuine concern for the underdogs of his school and naturally sticks up for them, ensuring they don't get lost in the hustle of everyday chaos that is third grade. Daryl does all of these things not to earn rewards or accolades, but because it is the right thing to do, and he humbly takes that role on every day. Daryl, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
Please stand up. Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Daryl, and thank you to Daryl's family for coming. City Clerk, could you please conduct a roll call?
All members are present for the resident.
Thank you. We have some presentations. The first one is the Riverside County Transportation Commission 2024 Traffic Relief Plan. Okay, Aaron Hake.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, honorable members of the I was just in Palm Springs City Council. I apologize. It's been a long day. I'm honored to be here in Palm Springs tonight and to speak to you about the 2024 Traffic Relief Plan that the Riverside County Transportation Commission has adopted. My name is Aaron Hake, and I'm the Executive Director of RCTC. You are most ably served on the Commission by Councilmember Middleton, who serves on our Executive Committee, which makes a lot of decisions about the administration of that organization and has been a great leader for us. Palm Springs has representation on the Commission, just as every other city does in Riverside County, from Blythe all the way to Corona, where I just mentioned, Temecula, Beaumont, everywhere in between. The entire County Board of Supervisors is there, and so it's a place where we're making regional decisions about regional transportation issues, of which the Traffic Relief Plan is a major one. Just a quick introduction to the public who may not have heard of RCTC before. Our role is quite broad and impacts a lot of aspects of transportation here in this community. We provide funding from state, federal, and local sources to this community throughout the Coachella Valley through a couple of means. One of them is Measure A. It's the half-cent voter-approved sales tax that has been in place here in Riverside County since 1989 and was renewed in 2002. And provides local street and roads funds to the city of Palm Springs and the unincorporated communities around it, provides public transit funding to Sunline Transit Agency, provides rail funding to the Metrolink system, which is just to the west of us, provides highway funding to CVAG for them to distribute throughout the region, as well as to a number of other types of transportation improvements, including bicycle and pedestrian facilities, grade separations, interchanges. Basically, if it's surface transportation, we have a role in providing state or federal funding to make it happen. We also, in the far western part of the county, operate the express lanes on the 91 and the 15. So if you have a fast track transponder, you are interacting with RCTC. We are your team. The City of Palm Springs is a great partner with us in securing funding for all of the things that I just mentioned. And we're going to talk about one of those things on the screen there, Coachella Valley Rail, a bit tonight. Coachella Valley Rail is one part of the traffic relief plan that was just adopted. This plan is a 30-year vision, comprehensive vision for surface transportation in Riverside County. It includes a number of projects in this region. It includes projects brought to us not only by our stakeholders, but by our cities, by our transit operators. And what we're really doing is looking ahead at the growth that is already here and that we know is coming to the county, and trying to provide a proactive vision so that we're addressing all of the needs that we know in our community. This plan was adopted by a very wide margin by our commission last month. And the important thing to know about it, just like any plan, it can't be put into action unless there's funding behind it. And we'll talk about how we might get there in a minute. Here in the Coachella Valley, the plan was devised in partnership with the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, which this city is also a member of. And they identified a number of potential projects that could be funded through the plan through what's called the Transportation Project Prioritization Study. It is a mouthful. The acronym is TPPS, but it's a valley-wide program that has been in place for a long time that takes an objective look at what are the needs in the valley, and it ranks them according to the different criteria. The plan in the Coachella Valley invests in highways, public transit, active transportation, environmental mitigation. That is a significant component of the plan, as well as traditional road and highway projects. Now, all of these projects are things we want to get done, and should they get done over the next 30 years, we would need a local funding source to do it. We could talk a little bit about why local funding is needed. State and federal sources are just not as reliable as we would like them to be, or as that we anticipated when Measure A was first adopted. It may not be a surprise to you, the state is having a fiscal situation right now. There is a budget deficit. We're expecting the May revise from the governor to come out any day now. And it seems like every time we hear about the state budget, that deficit gets bigger. So in fact, this week, myself and my colleagues are dealing with the fact that some public transit funding that we were counting on for projects like Coachella Valley Rail are currently frozen and not able to be used. And so if we're to be able to move forward on priorities here in this region for transportation, having that local funding like we do with Measure A is essential for us to move forward. So we are exploring a 1% countywide sales tax similar to Measure A going forward on the November ballot should the commission choose to put that forward. We did an economic analysis of if that measure were to be put in place, what would it mean economically to our region. On the slide there, you can see some of the highlights of those figures over a 30-year period, an estimated investment of $25 billion in the county, supporting 168,000 jobs, supporting $30.9 billion in economic output, and $10.9 billion in workforce income. Here in the Coachella Valley, that's about $5 billion worth of investment in transportation projects. If such a measure were to be approved by voters, there are some legal parameters that surround what RCTC can do with those funds. First of all, there are mandatory audits and fiscal reviews done in public meetings and done through our regular government processes. However, none of this money goes to Sacramento or to Washington. It's all controlled locally, just as Measure A is. And there are special parameters in RCTC statutes that require us to spend no more than 1% of the revenue on administrative salaries and benefits. The other 99% goes into the projects. Now, talking about raising revenue for anything can be difficult, conversation with the public. So we went out and did a public opinion survey to find out what the voters think. We first started by asking the question, do the voters of Riverside County even see a need for funding for transportation? We started there, and the answer was 82% of the voters said yes, they see a need. We've been polling this question for about a decade, and each time we ask it, the number goes up. What we're hearing from the focus groups we've attended, the stakeholder outreach we've done, is that there's a perception that traffic within the county is steadily getting worse. And so there's a need to do something. Countywide, 67% of voters said that they would vote for a 1% sales tax to fund these transportation improvements, and specifically here in this area, 64% of voters said yes, they would. So on the basis of that public opinion outreach, the stakeholder engagement we've done for the last several years, we put this plan together. I didn't go through every aspect of the plan. There is one on your dais, a copy of it. We do still have it available on our website. Anyone watching can scan the QR code or go to trafficreliefplan.org and take a look for themselves. I do want to highlight that we know that rail to the Coachella Valley is an important priority for this city and for this region. That project is not funded in Measure A. That project was conceived and really developed after the Measure A went forward. So if we are to get that project done, we will need a local source of funding to do it. State and federal funds alone will not get us there. In fact, what the state and federal governments are telling us, in fact, the secretary came down last year to meet with Supervisor Perez and Commissioner Middleton, and he told us straight in the face that if you want to get this project done like he does, we are going to have to come up with the local match so that the state can step forward with their funds. So measures like this are essential if we are going to bring rail out here to the desert on a daily basis, as well as the many other road improvements and other improvements that we're being asked to do. So we're here in the spirit of transparency and wanting to have a dialogue with you and your community as the commission looks to make this decision next month on whether we're going to have a ballot measure. Thank you.
Councilmember Middleton?
All right. Well, I don't have any questions for Aaron, but and maybe some of my colleagues do. But we are talking tens of billions of dollars to be spent over the course of 3 decades. So these are incredibly significant dollars that we are talking about and time. When you look at the kinds of massive projects, and certainly CV Rail is one of them, these are generational projects that are going to have the greatest impact when none of us who are sitting here now are going to be on this dais. But when we are looking at building out a transportation network that is going to be viable for the second half of the 21st century, those are some of the decisions that we're making here today. As we have gone through with all of the over 30 cities in the county, everyone has their specific pet project that they want to get across, and there will be time to address all of those as we move forward. But the concentration here is on the very important big issues. And one of the things I was certainly pleased about as we moved forward on this at RCTC is this has been truly one of those commissions where each city, each representative is taking and looking at the whole and what is needed and bringing some individual experiences from their particular area to the discussion, but recognizing if we do not work together as a county, we will not achieve what we need to do. The last thing I want to say is to congratulate Aaron. He is in his first week as the executive director after numerous years of preparation. And it was, as we met last year within the executive committee, knowing that Ann Mayer was going to retire to a very well-earned retirement, her recommendation was that we do not go outside the organization, but that we had the right person within the organization, and executive committee and all of our CTC unanimously agreed with that.
Thank you.
Yes?
That's what I have.
Councilmember Holstich?
Thank you so much for being here. Very much appreciate it. We won't hold it against you that you called us Corona. But no, we appreciate that you have a lot of cities and jurisdictions over this huge county. So thank you for being here tonight with us. I just had a follow-up question, which I know I'll be asked about later. So you have an economic impact and regional investment slide that says transportation investment is divided by region. It says $20 billion to Western Riverside County, $5 billion to the Coachella Valley, and $100 million to the Blythe area. And then it says funds distributed by population. So if you could just share a little bit about how the funds will be distributed. I know we have questions about, needs for different regions and equity among, the regions.
Absolutely.
And so I know it's a tax measure, so I'm just wondering how to explain that to the public and how that might work.
Absolutely. And you know what, Councilmember Holstage, I want to note that we need to amend that slide because what it should read is funds distributed by revenue. So the principle that's there, thank you for catching that. The way Measure A operates today, and we propose this measure would operate, is return to source. So any funds generated in the Coachella Valley would stay in the Coachella Valley. Same thing with Western County and Blythe. And even for a project like Coachella Valley Rail, which actually spans multiple regions, we would propose that the Western County pay for its share of that project and the Coachella Valley pay for its share of that project. So.
Thank you. That's helpful to understand. We obviously care about investing in transportation across the county and across the regions, but that's helpful for us to understand as we're, a powerhouse for the region and delivering that revenue, and we have infrastructure and transportation needs because of that. So thank you for clarifying that. That helps a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Terrific. Okay, I want to mention a couple other, some proclamations from this month. We did a proclamation for Richard Bass, who was honored on May 2nd, 2024 for his 19 years of dedicated and distinguished service as the coordinator and co-founder of Planning Ahead for LGBTQ+ seniors, aka PALS, improving the lives of LGBTQ+ seniors and allies throughout Greater Palm Springs and beyond. And today we had two proclamations, one for Harvey Milk Day, to honor Harvey Milk, one of the first openly gay elected officials in the United States, who was a leader in the LGBTQ+ community and an inspiration to so many, and was a tireless advocate of fairness for all Americans. Also today, Stuart Milk Day, today was declared Stuart Milk Day, and Stuart Milk is the co-founder and president of the Harvey Milk Foundation and was recognized for his tireless dedication to advancing the causes of equality, justice, and human rights for all individuals, caring for the legacy of his uncle Harvey Milk, and he's done so in over 60 countries across 6 continents. And with that, I also would like to mention today's Harvey Milk Breakfast, which had 1,200 people. Is organized by Mayor Pro Tem Rhonda Hart with his other hat, Greater Palm Springs Pride. It is truly one of the most inspirational events that occurs in our city with, I think, 275 school kids. Is that right? Mm-hmm. It's really terrific. So this was a great morning in Palm Springs, and we had representatives from all of Valley there, and really a terrific event. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Our next item is acceptance of the agenda. The City Council will discuss the order of the agenda, may amend the order, add urgency items, note abstentions or no votes on consent calendar items, or request consent calendar items be removed for a separate discussion. I would like to entertain a motion for acceptance of the agenda. Are there any items staff or a council member would like removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and or vote? No? Okay. I am pulling 1J. Okay, do we have a motion? So moved. Oops. I think I voted incorrectly. There we go. Okay, motion passes. At this time, I invite the City Attorney, Jeff Ballinger, to provide a report on the closed session.
Yes, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council, members of the public, the City Council met in closed session earlier this afternoon to discuss the 4 items that are listed on the agenda. Action was taken on the one item with regard to the employee discipline, dismissal, or release. The council voted 5-0 to continue that item to a future closed session. Otherwise, there was no reportable action.
Thank you. The next item is public testimony. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the city council on non-public hearing agenda items only. 2 minutes are assigned to each speaker. You're asked to please begin your time by telling us what agenda item or items you are speaking about. Please note that testimony for public hearings will be taken at the time of the public hearing, and general public comment for subjects not on the agenda will be taken later in the evening. If there's written comment that you wish to distribute to the city council members, please hand it to the city clerk. Our first speaker is Fred Bell. It is a non-public this is not a public hearing, the item 3B you're speaking on. Non-public hearing. It's not a public hearing, so yes.
You got me. I thought it was a public hearing. All right. My name is Fred Bell. I am the board vice president and the chief executive officer of the Palm Springs Air Museum. And today what I'm here to talk to you about is the plan that has been submitted or you're going to review tonight. Quickly, we submitted comments to you. We've only had about a week to review this plan, but there are edge effect issues on the south end that could impact our development. And we also have some concerns about the taxiway reallocation. And the reason for that is that may orphan one of our largest aircraft. We are a stakeholder, and we're not an interested third party. We have significant investments. We're prepared to be investing in 2 hangars on the south, which is a propulsion hangar for Dark Star, and a mid-century modern hangar, which is for Walt Disney's G1, and some of those aircrafts about $8 million. Those are aircraft that are in our inventory that we're just trying to get out of the elements and have classroom space. The placement of the immigration, the GA customs clearance right on the properties that's shown now creates a number of problems for us on the layout. And we think that we'd like to see that move to the middle or the other edge, and a setback included in the plan that would allow us to be able to have a future conversation about what the development looks like on the south end. We are not asking you to de facto approve those projects. They would have to go through your planning process and everything else. But since that site has been entitled in 1996, California land use has changed drastically. And as such, we do have some developmental challenges down there. So we would ask that you either direct staff to make those changes or continue the item for 2 weeks until we can have a conversation to do that.
Time's up, sorry.
Thank you, I know. Thank you very much.
Okay, our next speaker is Abraham Ishak.
I'm here for item number 3C regarding the conduct of the commissioners. I'm not really too sure why you're so concerned about the commissioners' conduct. You should be worried about your own conduct. And also, I don't know why you're so quick to put this, ordinance in place when you should be looking at other ordinances, such as placing an ordinance of not speaking on international affairs. And also your own conduct, such as, supporting an apartheid state, supporting a state that has a lot of human rights issues, and also placing a resolution as an emergency resolution and not placing it on the agenda for allowing people to come in and do public comment, and also not putting it back on the agenda to allow public comment. Especially now we see the campouts around the country, etc., and you're not in touch with what's happening in the country and in the world. And it's quite disappointing that you're so worried about these commissioners' conduct when you should be worried about your own conduct. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
No further commenters.
Okay, the next item is the consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar without item 1J, which was removed for separate discussion. Okay, passes 5-0. Now we'll go to 1J. May I have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of the council. A few months ago, the Measure J Commission...
I'm sorry, can you just say who you are?
Oh, sorry, I always forget that. Chris Mooney, I'm the Director of Finance and Treasurer. Thank you. So a few months ago, the Commission entertained the idea of opening up the Community Initiated Project application process for residents of the city to apply for funding for specific projects they may be very interested in. On April 18th, which is the last Measure J meeting, the Commission approved an application that we think is going to be, or the Commission thinks is going to be more clear for residents to state their project, and also more clear to be able to estimate the cost for city staff when they go to vet the project. They also are recommending to the council that a couple of things. First, to approve the application and the timeline of the community initiated project application, which is in the application itself, but it begins on June 3rd. The application process would close to the residents of Palm Springs on September 30th, and then the commission would take a few months to evaluate those projects and come up with a recommendation of projects to be funded to the council. That would happen sometime in January of 25. So it is a lengthy process. The commission is also recommending to the council to set aside $6 million of the $7.2 million total funds for the community initiated projects with a $500,000 cap per project. In addition, the additional $1.2 million that's left over would be used to fund any overages for projects that come in underestimated or overestimated. So that's what the commission is recommending. With that, I will take any questions.
Okay, I mean, I raised this mainly to highlight the process that is going on, because I think this is something our residents care a lot about. I know Measure J has become significant. We now generate $22 million, $6 million. I also just, we have seen a lot of projects come to completion recently. I know we saw the Mizell kitchen for Meals on Wheels, $500,000 renovation. We saw the wellness centers at the schools. The animal shelter has a new shade structure, Boys and Girls Club. So these were all community-initiated projects. I did want to just make a recommendation. I know they talk about two different versions. One that is city operated and managed, and one that is private nonprofits operate. I would urge to focus on things that do not take too much staff resources. We have some big projects going on in the next year and a half with the airport and the convention center and the plaza and the library and our parks, and of which these may be part of, and just to sort of urge the commission to keep that in mind. But also to make sure the public knows about these community-initiated projects, and if they have ideas, to please submit. I don't know if any other Councilmember Holstage.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your work on this. I see the chair of Measure J Commission here as well, so appreciate the commission's work. Tonight we're considering the scope of commissions, and so I just happen to have in my packet, the Measure J Oversight Commission and what our code says that the Measure J Commission should do. And I know we've gone back and forth about how many projects are staff generated versus community generated, and we've expanded the budget for community generated projects, which is great. Like the mayor stated, we've had so many great projects come from that program. And so I just wanted to ask, the amount of money that the commission is requesting is for $500,000 per project. That cap, is that from staff or is that from the commission? Could you just explain the reasoning for that? In part, I'm asking because we do have so much money that we're sitting on for potential projects. projects, and we haven't been able to act or spend on down all of the funding that we've gotten for Measure J. And so I would hate to arbitrarily limit projects if they're, unless there's a good reason to do so.
Yeah, that was actually a commission recommendation to cap the project, so any one project wouldn't take up a majority of the funds.
It's interesting as we just talk about, and this is more policy for council for the future, but for, I know our mayor is former chair of the Measure J Commission as well, just as we think about how to really be impactful with these funds, like, you know, I appreciate the benefit of spreading it around the city and spreading it among various projects, but we also have projects like capital projects that have really intense needs. And so to me, it wouldn't make sense to set an arbitrary cap personally, because I'd like to see what is out there, and then, you know, the commission can make recommendations to council to fund. But we have so many more needs than that. So, you know, it's our job to fund all of those projects. All of these projects will then come to council, correct? And so then council makes the final decision based on Measure J recommendations about what to fund.
That's correct.
I'm
Yeah,
just wondering what we're limiting and missing out on if we put a cap on it. But I appreciate there might need to be a cap.
And I would concur and just raise that with the commission. I know Councilmember Garner has raised it various times that it's sometimes better to get a few projects finished and completed than too many projects not completed. And I would just mention some things that for some of the nonprofits, I think with the Mizell, we did give $500,000, but they added their own $750,000 as well. So the nonprofits may be a little bit different, but the city projects, I don't know that we should have caps on them. But I would discuss that with the commission at some point, and that's basically the reasoning, because we want our staff to be able to complete them. I don't think we can call up the commissioner at this point. Can we, or can we? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like, since
We have the chair of the Measure J Commission, who just happens to be here, Naomi Soto.
maybe, Naomi, can you answer what's the thinking behind the $500,000 cap from the commission?
Yeah, thank you for that. So in general, there were a few projects in our last round that were kind of floating around that like 500,000, but for the most part, they were much smaller and ended up going much. The projects came in when we got the budgets for, or the quotes for them much higher. So it was like a $70,000 project that ended up being like $200,000, or a $100,000 project that ended up being $300,000 or $400,000. There weren't a lot of projects that came in were submitted at like 300, 400 that ended up being over 500,000. So the 500,000 limit felt like, in general, across the range of projects that we got, would be quite high on the threshold of those projects. And the other thing I would say too is the projects, as the mayor mentioned, that were over $500,000 were projects that were what we were calling, organizationally led. So they were cost more, but those nonprofits were responsible for covering the most. The other thing I would note too that we did last time, and the next round of commissioners will have to decide how they want to figure this out, but projects that seemed significant in impact and scope, a lot of times projects come into us through the community initiated projects and say, this is actually very important. Let's add it to our general capital projects. So it doesn't mean that it's like never up for consideration. Is it whether it's appropriate coming out of this kind of more residential, resident-led, source of ideas of project opportunities. So absolutely with you that we want to complete projects. We want to see them completed as quickly as possible. We want to use staff time as efficiently as possible, and just balancing the allocation across the whole Measure J revenue and really protecting the intention of community initiated projects specifically.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Hallstreet.
Thank you. If I could ask staff, I'm not sure if you're the right staff or not, just about staff capacity. So is that right that we should be doing multiple projects at 500,000? Is that the right amount? Should we consider doing fewer projects for staff capacity, maybe larger projects from the community? Because it is an application process, the community can think bigger if we expand the amount. So what are your thoughts to our city engineer?
Well, based on the experience we got from the first round, the capacity as far as engineering projects that we handle, we have that capacity to do those projects, right? The community initiated projects are unique because they're like one-offs and they're small in nature for the most part. And as the commissioner was mentioning earlier, if it is a bigger project, we treat it as a capital project. And I'll give you an example. Like the Demuth Park had multiple requests at different times for funding of projects, right? There's ADA compliance, there was like the dog park. So what we did over time is we compiled it into one big project, and now we have one big capital project going forward. So as those projects come in and the commission vets them and we get to look at them, we I believe, have the capacity to do those projects from the engineering side. What may be different is maybe from the Parks and Rec side or maybe from Public Works, they may have a different capacity than engineering.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I think that Joel Montalvo, I should have introduced you.
I'm sorry, I'm Joel Montalvo, the city engineer.
I appreciate this, and I appreciate the work of Measure J, the commission. I know personally it's a lot of work, but I also just really also wanted to highlight how great this is that we have this bucket of money that comes in through the sales tax measure that we get to look for community-initiated projects that benefit the whole community. And we've had quite a lot of them. So thank you, Chris Mooney, for your work on this as well as Naomi Soto, the chair of the commission, and the rest of the commission. Thank you very much. I guess we do need to vote on moving this. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem.
I made a motion. Oh, I have a comment. To approve. Make staff.
Did you want to
Change
Sure, go ahead.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would support approving staff recommendation with the change of available funds of $6 million to be guided by a $500,000 cap, but not limited to $500,000. So if something comes forward that is a larger project, that they wouldn't be saying no.
Okay. I think that is, and just for the record, I think sometimes what has happened is there's been community-initiated projects that they have referred to as part of the regular Measure J funding for engineering to take on. I think that has also happened as well. So if it became a much larger project, they could do that. But I agree with your revision, and
Rescind it if you want to make that motion.
if you want to make that motion.
My button's not working today.
Broken now. Try it again.
Oh, I seconded it. Okay, so we have changed it slightly to read, it's guided by but not limited to the $500,000 cap per project. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 3A, which is the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 Measure J and single audit reports of the City of Palm Springs. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening again. Chris Mooney, the Director of Finance and Treasurer. If we can go ahead and get Frances from the Poon Group, she's going to zoom in to present to the council. And while she's doing that and getting her presentation up, I'll just do a brief introduction. A couple months ago, city staff and the Poon Group brought most of the audit reports as receive and file items to the council. And there were two left. One was the single audit, which was completed at the end of March. A single audit is conducted when the city receives more than $750,000 in federal grants. And then the Measure J audit, which was completed by 12/31, but we put it in front of the commission so the commission can review it and recommend it to the city council. Both of these audits are receive and file as well, but the Poon Group has some required communications to the council, and we have Frances Kuo, who is our partner on the City of Palm Springs audit, and she is with the Poon Group. And Frances, go ahead and present your required communication.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and member of the City Council. Again, my name is Frances Kuo. I'm one of the partners from the Poon Group, also the engagement partner for the audit of the City of Palm Springs. So allow me to share my screen. So what I will go through tonight is to talk about the single audit and about the other result for the single audit. So as the Director of Finance mentioned, the single audit is required for any entity, non-federal entity, including the tribes that expend $750,000 or more of federal financial assistance in the fiscal year. So the single audit must be performed by an independent auditor, and the reporting package, which include the audit report, must be submitted to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse within 30 days after the reports received, or 9 months from the fiscal year end, which is due by March 31st of 2024. And we had submitted the report prior to the due date of March 31st of 2024. And a single audit include an audit of both the city's financial statement in compliance with the federal award requirement for those programs identified as major program. So the uniform guidance actually have a requirement to identify the major programs. So we go the risk assessment process to identify the major program to be tested for single audit. So during the year ended June 30th, 2023, the city expended $20 million in federal award funding for the city. And the major programs selected for testings are the City Community Development Block Grant Program, which is what we call the CDBG program, that expended $324,000, and the Airport Improvement Program with the $16 million of expenditure for 2023. So included in the audit are the compliance requirements that are applicable to CDBG program that we are required to test. So look at these applicable compliance requirements and evaluate whether they are direct and material to the program. So here are the compliance requirements that are applicable to CDBG. That includes activities allowed or unallowed, the allowable cost and cost principle, which dictate what kind of activity can the CDBG program use for, and also the cost principle the CDBG program should be following. And the equipment and real property management, how the city manage the equipment and the real properties that's purchased with the CDBG fund. The period of performance dictate the timing when the funding has to be expended. And the program income are the requirement to monitor the income that's generated through use of the federal fund, and of course the reporting of the CDBG program and some of the special tests and provision relevant to the CDBG program. In the compliance requirements applicable to the Airport Improvement Program, again, is the activities allowed or unallowed and allowable cost and cost principles. And similarly, the equipment and real property management on the property and the equipment funded through the Airport Improvement Program. And the matching requirement to make sure that the matching requirements are met in the reporting of the Airport Improvement Program and the special tests and provisions for the Airport Improvement Programs. So here's the audit result for the single audit. So as I mentioned earlier, the single audit include both the financial audits and for the city's financial statement, and also the federal award audit portion related to the compliance with the federal requirement. So in the last presentation, when I did in the March, so the financial statement, we issue a modified opinion. We do have internal control over financial reporting finding 2023-001 related to the internal control and compliance over the year-end closing process, the bank reconciliation, and the timeliness of the investment reports. And with the federal award, we also issue a modified opinion. So what that means is the city complies with the compliance requirement in all material respect. Remember all the compliance requirement that I mentioned earlier. So each program has different direct and material or applicable compliance requirements. The city comply with the compliance requirement in all material respect. However, we did report finding 2023-002 related to the internal control and compliance over reporting. So these reporting findings are related to some of the timeliness of the quarterly required reports. So the detail of these findings are included in our audit report, which should be included in the agenda packet. So that talk about the criteria, the condition, and the effect of these findings, and our recommendation, and also the city's responses to those findings. So with that, conclude my presentation. I'm more than happy to answer any question you may have.
Questions or comments from council? I have actually a question for Chris. At the end of 2023, there was 39 million left in the Measure J.
That's correct.
And how much was that allocated towards things?
Yeah, most of those funds, I think about 30 to 31 million were committed to projects that were in process.
Okay. Do you have
And
any-
they carry over until the projects are completed.
Okay. Do you have any idea how much money will be at the June of '24?
We're estimating in the vicinity of 7 million will be uncommitted at the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, but there is other funds in there that are just
Right.
that are there but committed.
Right, correct. Mhm.
Okay. I have no questions. Do you have a motion? Thank you, Francis.
Thanks, Francis.
Motion passes 5-0. The next item on the agenda is item 3B, which is approval of the Airport Master Plan Airside and Landside Conceptual Development Plan for the Palm Springs International Airport. May we have a staff report, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. Harry Barrett, Executive Director of Palm Springs Airport. Background on this, we have started a master plan process in March of 2023. The master plan is an FAA document and it is required for development of the airport. Airport staff held a series of meetings over the last year, which included working group consisting of airport staff, as well as city department heads and airport commission members. We also conducted a public open house in November related to terminal development. And we're now in the final phases of identifying the airside development part of this. We're asking council tonight to approve a conceptual development document that includes a conceptual development plan, including the terminal concept, which was previously approved back in February, and now combines that with the airside concept as well. The council asked us to go back and revisit the consolidated rental car facility or CONREC aspect of that. We also looked at that, and we have a recommendation for that. If approved, this document will be converted to an airport layout plan, which needs FAA approval. It will also start a CEQA NEPA process and help us get some of these projects moving. And finally, it'll trigger a financial work plan for the airport so that we have some guidance on how we're spending our funding. I want to address a couple of other topics in this. So the planning goals of a master plan are to balance the competing interests such as aviation needs, community needs, and tenant needs across 40 airport tenants. Also to identify plans that help the airport reach its highest and best land use. Many of these issues are involved in the master plan process are compliance issues, meaning that we have to comply with them per FAA regulations. But the master plan is a living document, and as those regulations change, as our business model changes, so can the plan be changed. As far as noise, pollution, and sustainability, I know that's been a concern for the community as well. Our goal as we modernize the airport is to focus on noise, pollution, and sustainability in the planning process. So I just want to make that clear that that is always a goal for us, and it will continue to be a goal for us. And then in terms of public outreach, we do continue to have public outreach with the community. We do have a public hearing scheduled, a public meeting scheduled in June to review these plans, but we're also continuously accepting comments on these plans as well as we go through the public process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Hayes. He's our consultant with Mead & Hunt, who's been working on the master plan process, and then we'll take any questions after his presentation.
Thank you, Harry. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. It's a pleasure to be in front of you again. This is the third update that I have for you. And I think I mentioned this in the first two updates, but it's been an absolute pleasure to work with your airport staff. They are true professionals. In fact, all of our interactions with city departments have been very positive throughout this process. My agenda is about a 15-minute presentation. As Harry mentioned, I'm going to go through the CONREC consolidated rental car recommendation first. You all also directed us in January to look at some additional transportation connectivity with the airport, and we have done that, and I've got some slides to share with you on that, and then I'll show you the approved terminal concept, talk a little bit about the airside recommendations, and then essentially we're asking for your approval to continue the planning tonight. So This doesn't set anything in stone, this approval. This doesn't commit the city to anything. This doesn't commit the FAA to funding anything. Essentially, what your approval tonight allows us to do is to move into the CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act process, and do that impact analysis, as Harry mentioned. That is a 12 to 18-month process. At the end of that, we'll be in front of you again. We'll have a better idea of what the noise impacts are, what the traffic impacts are, what the visual impacts are at that time. So also to those concerns that Harry mentioned, I have some revised terminal renderings to show you tonight, and we've lowered the level of the CONRAC. So I think you'll to 3 levels, assuming one or 2 levels is built underground. So I think you'll appreciate those renderings. So the CONRAC planning that we did, essentially we looked at the one site immediately adjacent to the terminal area. We looked at another site to the south in between Kirk Douglas Way and Ramon. That's site number 2 on the map on the right. Site number 3 is up in the north west corner of the airport, adjacent to Farrell Road, just south of Vista Chino. We developed some criteria for how we screen these potential CONRAC sites, and the passenger experience was the #1 criteria. For those folks who are coming to Palm Springs on vacation, getting on a shuttle bus and having to shuttle to one of these off-site CONRACs, we feel would just decrease the level of service and the passenger experience for your passengers. That's really the primary reason why we're still recommending on-site CONRAC location. So that's our recommendation. This is a little bit of a zoom in of exactly where the CONRAC would be sited. That's the orange rectangle on this drawing. This is about a 9-acre parcel. We need about 34 acres to meet the rental car demand. So 4 levels would do that. We were initially recommending 5 levels just to plan for some growth beyond the 20-year planning period. But again, these are details that could be worked out in the design of this parking facility. So that's the CONRAC. On the transportation connectivity subject, we looked at a couple of things, the existing transit and bus routes in the Coachella Valley. We also looked at some of the future planned transit and bus routes and how we might connect those to the airport. So this is a map that shows where a lot of those bus and transit stops are in proximity to the airport. And then also in proximity to the 3 CONRAC locations that we analyzed. But again, the on-site location is our recommendation. This is kind of a hard to read chart, I apologize, but we also looked at some future projects that are being planned in the Coachella Valley and how we might propose connections to the airport with these future transportation projects. We're going to have 3 proposals in our master plan document for how the airport could be better connected to transit, and just briefly I'll touch on those. The first one is in addition to Route 2, which is bus connection to Flexibus, which is the station is located on North Indian Canyon Drive, and having that connected to Route 2 from the airport would increase connectivity. The second route improvements that we're recommending are improvements to routes 2 and 4. And these primarily connect to the Amtrak station, which is also north of the airport. If there is additional Coachella Valley rail, it's likely that the Amtrak station is going to be the location of a future station, and having connectivity between that station and the airport we think would be beneficial. Councilmember Middleton, do you have a question? The thought is that the existing Amtrak station would likely be a station in any future Coachella Valley rail project, and connecting the airport to that station is a recommendation. And then our third recommendation is some additional, a more direct route for Greyhound. Currently, the route from the airport to the Greyhound station adjacent to the interstate is, it's a bit of a long route. And if you went around the other side of the airport, that might increase usage and better connect the airport to that service. Harry mentioned the conceptual development plan. That's essentially one sheet of paper that shows all the airport recommendations. I appreciate that it's a lot of labels on one drawing, and we did do some blow-ups. I'm not sure if they made it into the presentation, but as a reminder, this is the preferred terminal concept. The Wexler, historic Wexler terminal and the Bono concourse are kind of a dark teal with the courtyard in the middle. This is the kind of the full build out of our plan. The first phase would be the Conrack and the additional gates to the north adjacent to the Conrack. So we're recommending all initial construction be to the north. That's going to provide the airport with 7 additional gates and also a federal inspection station, as well as the Conrack. This is the drawing I mentioned that is just a lot of labels. The good news is we're not recommending much in terms of changes to the airfield. So the airport has a wonderfully long runway. Despite the hot temperatures in the summer, we're not seeing a need to extend the runway. We are recommending a small extension to the secondary runway, to the or at least reservation of space for some future extension to that runway. But the primary runway, the runway that most of the large aircraft use in and out of Palm Springs, remains exactly the same. The flight paths remain exactly the same, so no changes to no changes to where aircraft fly approaching and departing the airport. These are the zoomed in areas, so I'll go through these 4 kind of quickly. This is the northeast corner of the airport. The most notable development here is the apron that you see in the middle. We are recommending one of the service companies that it's known as an FBO, a fixed base operator at the airport. This is a private company that provides services to private aircraft, fueling, catering, et cetera, hangaring of aircraft. We're recommending that company be relocated to the east side. That puts both FBOs on a level playing field on the east side of the airport, and that's illustrated on this drawing. This is the northwest corner of the airport. The airport doesn't own much property outside of the runway taxiway area in this area, so not many changes with the exception of some improvements to an airport maintenance yard and the potential for a flight kitchen to serve airline catering needs. This is the southeast corner of the airport. This is where the second FBO is located. We did communicate with this FBO, and the response was we just need more aircraft parking if you can provide it. Everything else at this airport works really well for them. Then in the southwest corner is obviously where the terminal area is. So this is just another view of the recommendations on the terminal area. These are the additional renderings that I mentioned. So the Conrack again is in orange. And as a reminder, we reduced the number of levels to 3 levels. So this is a 3-level Conrack, assuming at least 1 level underground. It essentially sets so it would be somewhere between 45 and 50 feet above ground level, which is similar to the height of the palm trees, just for visualization purposes. But you can see the blue, the powder blue colors are the concourse extensions with additional gates, a concourse to the north as well as a concourse to the south, and then the 3-level Conrack. And this is looking down Talkwish at the historic Fountain and historic Wexler terminal. This is just another view produced by our architect partners at Gensler. This is from the southwest. And then we have a third view from across the airfield, looking at the Bono concourse with the two new concourses to the right and the left of the Bono concourse and the Conrack in orange. So wanted to show you those, particularly because I know that there was some visual line of sight concerns with the Conrack and particularly to some of the neighborhoods that are close to the airport. I think a 3-level Conrack is, it doesn't fully meet the needs, but there's rental car facilities in the vicinity that could potentially handle some overflow and make a 3-level Conrack work. And we can also explore the potential to go underground subsurface with 1 or 2 levels. And that is all we had. Questions?
Any questions, Mayor Pro Tem?
So, hey, Harry, thank you for this. You mentioned in your comments that there's a focus on noise as part of your overall work plan. What does that mean, a focus on noise?
So during the planning process, we've been focused on not making changes that would impact the noise profile of the airport. And that's one of the things that Ryan's team will be exploring in the CEQA process, as well as what impacts, if any, there will be on noise, positive or negative. However, as we start to develop these projects, go into the architectural phase, that's really going to be a focus on each additional project for the airport. So we're incorporating that into our planning process for each project.
That's new noise.
Correct.
So is
and current noise. So if we can reduce noise that we have now, we're going to try and reduce it.
Got it. Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you. And in the presentation, the slides, you when we were looking at the runways, you mentioned that we're going to extend one runway a little bit. Why do that?
Great question. So the reason we're recommending you reserve space to extend that runway is another 800 to 1,000 feet would just increase the fleet mix that's able to be accommodated on that runway. Right now, there's a threshold of basically a business jet size that can't use that runway. So you have some medium-sized business jets that are using the primary runway, and this would increase the capacity of the airport slightly if those jets could use both runways as opposed to only the primary runway.
Okay. All right. And how tall is the USO building today?
I don't have the answer to that, but I can get that. I can get back to you on that.
So I'm just curious as how much taller is the rental car building going to be than the current height of the USO building?
We can do some comparative analysis on that and get back to you. The USO building, as it exists today, is a 2-story hangar.
Yeah.
If that gives you any perspective.
Yeah. So I'm curious, what's the difference between the two? And where's additional parking coming from?
We're talking about vehicle parking.
Yeah.
We're still working through that process. We do have some short-term plans for added parking, which include employee parking, as well as some modifications to the overflow parking. That will not meet our needs for the next 20 years, I can tell you that now. However, there are some creative options out there that we're exploring, and we'll certainly bring those forth when we get to that point.
Okay. And in the slides that we were presented today, we had nice renderings from a couple different views. But is there one, if you're walking out of the Wexler building, what's that view north?
That's a good question. We do not have that view. We could add it to the list. So you're saying when you come out of the center of the Wexler terminal, out of the glass doors.
And then if you turn to look at the mountains north, what are we still going to see?
Yeah. Okay. We can certainly look at that.
Okay. Anybody else? I have questions. I have lots if we're going
I'll go next then.
That's
All right, thank you. I Thank you for the presentation. This was very helpful. A couple of questions for you. I'm looking at the northeast view slide that you had. Yeah,
This one?
that one. And the large space that is south of the airport along Kirk Douglas Way, I'm not seeing that projected as having any development, and I'm struggling to understand how we can adequately park without addressing use of that space.
You want to take that? That's correct. Without acquiring that property, it's likely that the airport will run out of public parking spaces, surface parking. There's just not physically enough space. So really the two ways to meet the parking demand are to acquire that property and add more surface parking, or to go vertical.
So, and that space right now is privately owned?
That's my understanding, yes.
One of the things I think we're going to need as we start to move forward is a true understanding of all of the privately held land surrounding the airport, that it's going to be essential if we're taking and looking at a 30-year development posture that we are going to need to acquire, and what are the processes that we should be following in terms of trying to acquire that land. But the footprint that is publicly owned today, I'm struggling to understand how we're going to get all of this in that footprint.
That is understandable, and that's a problem we've been trying to solve for about 2 months, but we'll take that back as an action item and look into it.
So, the CONRAC is the rental car facility, and I understand using the acronym, but I'm going to say rental car because I think most people in the public will understand what we mean by that. Taking and going one or more stories underground certainly does help with sightlines, but it comes at a cost. So just for the sake of the public, approximately how much cost is being added for every level that goes underground?
For each subterranean level, we were projecting 15% of additional cost.
Okay, that's pretty significant. What plans do we have for the USO and how that will be accommodated within the development?
Short term, as we pursue development, we would likely relocate temporarily the USO to some type of modular facility to accommodate them. Long term, there would be space developed in the new terminal or the new concourse to accommodate the USO.
Right. All of us know the value that the USO brings everywhere they go, but we are fairly famous for the quality of the USO services that we have here in Palm Springs and the importance of those. So everything that we as a council can do to aid in that transition and making sure that it works well for our men and women in uniform and the people who give so much to the USO would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
So, Mr. Bell spoke from the Air Museum, and obviously an incredibly treasured property for our community. What's the process for working with the Air Museum to balance the challenging needs that they have as well as what we have for general aviation?
Well, I think Ryan can speak to that. We've already started addressing some of those in a revised plan. We just needed the comments and captured those to include them. Now, that said, there's one element on there, the taxiway specifically, where we're going to have to be really creative. And the reason is because we can't use federal funding for the purposes of exclusive use. So if we need to widen the taxiway, we need to come up with the funding to accommodate that.
All right, thank you. I think those are my questions. I've got one or two comments when it's time for that.
Okay, Councilmember Garner.
Thank you.
In the beginning, you talked about your ground transportation analysis. Did you reach out to these agencies to talk to them about this?
We reached out to the city, but not the regional transportation agencies, no.
Okay, so all of the information about Sunline and Flix Plus and everything, that's just what, as
That's
it
just
currently
what was
exists?
Publicly available, yes.
Okay. We're talking about all of this parking, and it's nice to see this ground transportation analysis, but I would like to see us do more. One of our goals as a city is sustainability, and we're building an airport for the future, not an airport for what's happening right now. So how are we taking into account what's going to happen in the future, work with these different agencies to make sure that we are planning these routes so that we can have relief from the number of cars that are parked at our airport, and really become a space that does not require a car to get to the airport, your own personal car, I should say, to get to the airport, but transit can be planned in another way. I'd just like to see a lot more on what's needed to accomplish those goals so that we're able to figure out what we need to do as a city, what other agencies need to do, and how we can work as a region to do transportation and sustainability at the same time.
We can certainly do that. It was not scoped within the original master plan document. However, we can either add on to that document or do that as a standalone project to get that information back to you.
Right, and that is a question I have in general for staff is the extent of this, because you do have it listed here, but I just have a lot more questions once you include it. And one thing I would like to know is what do we need to do to make sure that we're really thinking about this broadly and for the next 20 plus years, and not just having the information.
Absolutely.
But thinking bigger.
Okay, I guess me? All right. Well, first of all, thank you for all the work that has gone into this. I know it's been a tremendous amount so far, and there's a lot more coming. So thank you, and to all the staff for all the work that you've done, and to the Airport Commission. You know, and we do have a lot of questions. Some of them I've heard new tonight, which are excellent questions. Some of them I've thought of myself, and I think, you know, one of the overriding things is that this airport is really a gem in our city, and it's something very special, and it really it is integral to the Palm Springs brand, and that whole, not just how it looks, but the whole experience of coming into the airport. And we also see that, you know, we've seen from Ontario, there is a real interest in more using regional airports. And I think last time you were here, you mentioned a third of the travel is really locals from the area using it, which just goes to show that, you know, people, I know when I first moved here, everybody always went to LA to fly, but now they all want to fly out of Palm Springs, and it really sets the tone here. You know, the issue is that I think you mentioned this was a $2.3 billion project. Have we ever done a project that big in this city? Have we ever done anything that's even maybe 10% of that? I'm trying to think. What?
Mr. Will.
What was it? Sorry, I shouldn't ask the public, but I don't know that we have really done something quite this big, and I don't know if anyone on our staff has actually done anything this big. So it makes me somewhat concerned, because we do have a lot of very specific questions that are coming up tonight. So I'm going to ask these questions, and then I have sort of have an idea on how to address a lot of them. So first of all, regarding the CONRAC, I want to ask a question, because you clearly are preferring the location north of the Wexler terminal. Where do people enter and exit out of the car rental? Through the airport or LCLO?
That's certainly a detail to be determined in design, but our thought process is likely a direct access onto LCLO.
Okay, so LCLO, if anyone, and the fire station will stay there?
That's also a recommendation of the master plan, is to reconstruct the fire station in its current location.
Okay, have we talked to the fire department? Yes, okay, so it would be reconstructed in its current location? And we're talking about also doing another fire station as well in downtown. And are the rental cars still going to use this facility by City Yard where they have their car washing and gas?
That's also to be determined. It's possible they may need some of those facilities, depending on how many levels the Conrac's built and how much functionality there is in the Conrac and how much storage space is provided.
Because that traffic flow, I know we want that customer experience where they get to go, not have to go on a shuttle, although I've been to many airports where shuttles are fine. But if you then come out into this traffic jam or congested area, I don't think that we may actually not improve the customer experience. And my understanding is that we're going to have to move other parking, at least temporarily, somewhere else. Is that correct? And use a shuttle?
The phasing, certainly, we'll have to relocate parking, potentially the rental car companies as well. The duration of that and how that's phased is to be determined, but yes, we will have to make some modifications landside.
So for several years, we could be doing a shuttle, and is that going to be enough space during that period?
That's a really good question. I would say no, but that's not something that we have the answers to right now, given the business model of the airport.
And just, I know the USO came up from Councilmember Middleton, so during this, I mean, it's a years-long process, they'll be in a modular unit?
For the USO, correct.
Okay, because I know, I've been there in the holidays, there's hundreds and hundreds, there's 800 people, I think, go through every day, so it's more than just a small modular unit.
Right, no, it'd be a larger facility.
Has to be quite a big one. I want to ask us about the Air Museum. On that slide you show where the FIS is going, the General Aviation FIS, next to them, right to the south of that, you've got 5 future hangars. Why the issue of sort of landlocking in the Air Museum? And I realize we don't need to, this is an airport and we have an Air Museum here, but they are integral to our community, to our arts and culture, to our history, to the whole valley, really, that if they have these expansion plans, we want to take that into consideration with this airport. And it looks like the main issue, I guess, is the FIS that's right next to them. Is that correct?
There is a customs facility just south of them, correct, and that can be moved on the plan. There were hangars accounted for. Those hangars were replacing hangars that we would be demoing on the east side of the airport, and accommodating additional space for the west side. So what we were trying to do was get all general aviation activity to the east side of the airport. I think I mentioned this to a couple people earlier, but you try and keep small airplanes in their silos, big airplanes in their silos, and that creates a more efficient and safe airfield. To do that, we had to move a lot of puzzle pieces around to make that happen.
I agree. And I just, to speak into this puzzle piece that we're doing, you're the one who's project managing this right now.
Correct.
That's correct. And running an airport, which is growing in record size. What is the plan for bringing on, are we bringing on outside planners and help to do it?
Yes, so we have a number of on-calls who are working with us, 5 on-calls actually, who are working with us on the planning, environmental, construction management, things like that. Now, in terms of the project transition, that's something that we don't have in place currently. We do have positions allocated for the airport for full-time support. However, we will need to augment those positions. And so I've been working with the city manager. We've been talking about some executive level support for transition planning for the airport.
Okay, I'm talking about a real project manager for this expansion, or a management team, or an outside company.
It would be a management team.
So, and this is something, I mean, we want people who have actually done these kind of expansions, because, again, I don't know how many people have done $2.5 billion airport. I'm sure there are a lot of people have in the country, but we haven't here, so it's quite extensive. So I know at last budget, we approved, I think, 50 new positions for the airport.
Correct.
How many of those have been filled?
We're still vacant for this fiscal year, 20 positions. So we're working toward getting there.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
if I can just go back to your previous comment, this is probably the biggest project we've ever done in the city. The next closest would be probably some of our big infrastructure projects with stormwater,
that sort of thing. But this is really a different sort of situation, and you're exactly right. Airports around the country have done significant expansion renovation projects like we're talking about here. And as we've talked to Harry, while this project's going on, he still has to run the rest of the airport operation. So there's certainly a lot of very qualified senior management executive companies that have managed and run projects like this, both phased in projects and otherwise. So we're talking about a decade of work going on here, if not longer. And so as we move forward, we've absolutely recognized, I know we've talked to some of the council members and yourself too about this, and it's really going to be absolutely critical to the overall success of the project.
Thank you, City Manager. And I actually think we need this now, is what I'm really getting at, because we have seen our airport growing in record numbers. We had emergency drill. We've seen there was an incident. We had to evacuate the airport. We're finding, we're having new flights. I think recently they announced more summer flights and year-round. So I think this is something that we really need a project management team or person, and then building into a team as soon as possible, because, as I said, we don't even have enough staff to fill what you need to run the airport if you're 20 positions short out of the 50 that were approved.
Yeah, I can comment on that, Mr. Mayor. So that's actually what I was doing earlier today, was writing the scope of work for those services.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about how we get this $2.5 billion or $2.3 billion. Where does... do we just send this to FBA and they write us a check and say, that's good?
I wish it was that easy, yes. But, so just a point of clarification on the $2.3 billion, that's the total program. That's if you built everything shown on the screen in one phase. So we've broken this into 4 phases. The Conrack, the rental car facility, and the gates to the north is phase 1. Total budget on those 2 projects alone is somewhere between 800 and 900 million, but that's project 1. Just getting that done is going to be a multi-year massive effort. The demand is there, though. So the FAA does have programs where they have funding available for terminals now. For years they told airports and cities, we'll help you maintain your airfield, but your terminal, you've got to borrow the money and pay for your terminal yourself. So the good news is there are some FAA programs that are available to us. There's always the bond market, and we are working on a final chapter of the master plan that includes a financial implementation analysis and takes a look at all of those pots of money that are available to airports and figures out what we can pay for in the terminal program with each pot, and make some realistic estimates, and we're working through that with Harry and his team right now.
Okay, so we need to but we're going to have to sort of lobby the FAA and other people to make sure we get the funding. I'm sure other cities are trying to get some of this funding as well.
Right. So once we had that feasibility plan in place, and once we determined which projects are a priority for the city and the airport, we would certainly approach the FAA and have those conversations. And we have actually been doing that already, meeting with our airport district's office in LA to start those discussions.
And what about like the elected officials, like our Senator Padilla and Butler and Congressman Calvert and Ruiz? Have they all been briefed and walking through this?
We have briefed them on the terminal development plan. They have not seen this conceptual plan yet, but they are up to speed on the terminal development plan and aware.
Okay. It would seem to me like it's important to get everybody in, and I know, and sort of on board the same way that council member, and I mean this at all levels. So we want to have our elected officials on there. We want to make sure that the tenants on the property, whether it's the Air Museum or the FBOs or the USO or whatever, all understand what's happening. I think we want to talk to like the transit people, because Councilmember Gardner raised an excellent point, is that we're building this we are expanding, which we know there's demand, but the future, we're talking electric cars, we're talking trying to reduce our emissions in this city, which is key to our climate action plan, and I don't quite see how we are guiding it with this. I know traffic is something which has been raised as a huge issue in our community that, we have seen, even just recently came up with work on Ramon Road, is it created a lot of issues within our city. Adding traffic onto LCLO without a full traffic plan seems to me that that it's dangerous to do that, and to say that this is where it's going without fully thinking through all of these other elements that are going on. And when you talk about funding, I don't know, is there even, I think we brought up the public-private partnerships for the airport, which was not feasible. Is it feasible for the Conrac, for the car rental facility?
It actually is feasible for both. We still need to do some due diligence on that, and we have been working with Chris to start to look into that a little bit more. But it is feasible for both.
Okay. It would seem to me that there's a lot of open questions right now. And I realize, I actually have no idea how complicated, I can see how complicated this is, because we're seeing this now. I know we met briefly, but we haven't had a full, long briefing to ask lots of questions and mull it over. And in my view, this is the biggest project, and we have to get it right. And, we are now leading the whole, what is going to be the future expansion in our valley. This is sort of the octopus that drives the whole valley, whether it's tourism, whether it's our residents, whether it's our economic growth, and our brand, and all kinds of our climate as well, that we need to, I would suggest that we've had a lot of questions here that have come up, is that before we just say, let's go ahead forward with this Conrac and this, yes, we're okay, let's move forward and we'll figure everything out later, that we come back and answer a lot of these questions that we've raised today, whether it's specifically with the Air Museum or whether it's with how we're going to do our lobbying effort or a master who's going to be the project manager, or talking to the different transit agencies or sustainability or traffic study. I realize a lot of this, the full detail comes later, but it seems like we are going to make a decision today which is going to affect a lot of these things, and it might make more sense to come back in next month with at least answers to some of these questions before we make an approval on this conceptual plan. And I realize we don't want to delay it. I know we don't want to do any of that, but in my experience, when we have done things without fully thinking them through, it delays it more. And getting buy-in too. We want to make sure that everybody is bought into this, that we have thought about it, that we don't find out that the Sunline and Amtrak have whole different plans because there's something else going on, or that the congressmen or Congress in our area, they're not really fully on board with this. And we want to make sure that the community actually knows what's going on. Mayor Pro Tem brought up noise, but noise and traffic are really big issues. And I know we're going to address it, but we have to tell people how we're addressing it. You talked about a community meeting in June. My guess is that's where you're going to start getting lots of questions, these same questions coming up, that are going to be, and we want to at that point have more definitive answers, understanding that it may change over time, as you said, and this is still a development process. But I don't see how we can make a decision today without having more information and making sure some of these things are really in place before we move forward. So my vote would be, and I know there's other comments, and I don't want to speak for everybody, that we move this decision until next month, and you can come back and talk about, staffing, project management, traffic plans, other agencies on site, as well as other transit agencies, traffic, more about how funding and a real timeline on how this is going to go forward. You mentioned the 12 to 18 month sequel, but it triggers a lot of things you were mentioning once this approval comes. And I'm not clear on how that what it triggers, when, and how often we're going to start to hear updates and more decisions. So that would be my recommendation, is that we hold off until next month and finalize the conceptual plan if at that point we have the answers. Councilmember Middleton?
Well, my question would be, if we hold off for another month, what is the consequences in terms of the application that needs to be filed?
I don't think there are any consequences relative to the application for the environmental process or for the FAA. I think a lot of these questions are going to be we're not going to have complete answers to them. I think I mentioned early on that the master planning process is very prescribed for airports. So we have to do things in a sequence, and some of these are evaluated in the CEQA process and the NEPA process. A lot of these questions, frankly, are going to require a team effort with city planning and city engineering.
So I'm supportive of giving a little more time for more study. I think a project of this magnitude, we need to get some of the concepts as correct as we can at the outset, and I really applaud the mayor for bringing up the issues of project management. That's going to be absolutely essential to this process, and is not something that we can underestimate. What I don't want to do, though, is keep kicking this back to answer questions that frequently we're going to end up answering, not in the initial plan, but as we get into the actual project plans down the road. But we've got some major questions here, not the least of which is the ground transportation network getting to and from the airport. Those of us who've tried to travel in January and February and even into March at the airport know how crowded we are right now, and how crowded those roadways are leading up to the airport. And we're moving from being a boutique, a very attractive airport that all of us adore, to practically doubling the number of passengers. And that's going to come with some sacrifices. And I think we are going to be able to get support for those sacrifices across our community the more we fess up to them right at the very beginning of this project. As we do have the RCTC executive director here today, and I don't want to add an immense new complication to this, but we're working extremely hard to bring rail transit, and I was very pleased to see that you're already addressing that. But one of the major community questions that we're going to need to address is how we connect the rail station to the airport and to the downtown. And that is going to be something that we need to really be thinking about those decisions with decades of future in mind. And so my big question, comments, ground transportation, really getting firm in the public's mind what are going to be the differences in the travel experience coming to the Palm Springs Airport than what people are used to today, and making sure that we are very thoughtful in how we connect downtown and a rail station.
Yeah. So I don't, Councilmember Hostage?
Thank you. I haven't gone yet, so I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you for this. I agree with my colleagues. It just needs more work. We need to, so I have questions, but I think I'll just summarize them in comments and different topics. So one, the process for stakeholders. We had the Air Museum come today, really important stakeholder. We need a process for them and clarity for them about how to participate in this process. I think that also constituent outreach. So again, I know you've done public outreach, but like what is the process that the public will have in understanding this? We know this from doing smaller projects, but many, many projects, the public just isn't paying attention until much later. And so when you bring this, say it's June, people are going to find out. This is a huge change for our community, especially the rental car facility, which I'm just not sold on is going to work in that location at all. And I appreciate that you looked at other locations, and I appreciate that you did the analysis. And I think that there are traffic concerns. It sounds like we're planning somewhat due to revenue, which we need to focus on, right? And the amount of rental cars. I agree with my colleagues about the concerns about sustainability, and just the impact on views and vistas and even the passenger experience, entering the airport and using the Wexler building. That's incredibly important to our community. So again, where can the architectural stakeholders participate in this process and really be heard? I know for other projects we've created, like just even for the downtown park, a much smaller project, and I appreciate that the airport master plan is prescribed by the FAA, but we are allowed to do other types of outreach, right, and expand the outreach that we do, because that's what we always do for any type of project in Palm Springs. It's never easy, because we want everyone to be heard, and our stakeholders do want a voice and a seat at the table, and I think that we would very much hear about it after the fact if we didn't bring those people to the table. So I agree with Mayor Pro Tem, very much would like to see like that view and vista from entering and what the impact, because the set aside seems like not sufficient set aside for that huge building, and the impact on that Wexler building. I shared the same concerns about the cost of undergrounding. You raised the issue of heat, but I was really interested to learn about, as heat increases over the next 30 years, how that will impact, and what we need to plan for. And Mayor raised government affairs, bringing in our elected officials, our Congress members. We very much need to lead with that. And then thank you to my colleagues for raising public transportation and connection. I'm so glad we have the executive director of RCTC here. I apologize, I teased you about Corona, because you can see we very much need your help. It's truly atrocious to see this graph that you created about how few ground transportation opportunities connect to our airport and how distant our Amtrak station and bus lines are. That is a huge problem, and likely the reason we need so much parking on this site. And then I think I do have one question. So is your working group that you created, that was just prior to the master planning process, or are you still using that planning group?
We're still using that group. They've been a part of it throughout.
Okay, great. So I might think through like just the representation on that group. You only have 2 women out of, I think, 11 people or more. So I doubt women are only 20% of our users of the airport. I know I'm a very frequent user, but maybe we can think about like architectural stakeholders, others who might bring those voices that we know are going to be important in the planning process later on. Thank you for having sustainability there. That's important to the council. And then can you just tell us, for the public, my last question, the schedule and timeline? So you detailed it a little bit, but like, what is the next step? What does that look like? What are the next opportunities for the public to participate?
So Harry mentioned the June 4th open house that we have scheduled. That really is the next public outreach opportunity.
Is that a Zoom meeting, or people?
No, that is in person. I think we booked the convention center again. Yeah, the convention center, which is where we did the one in November. That was very well attended.
Great. So I would think about like hybrid opportunities for people to participate. We always get criticized when we do outreach in the summer. We have to plan in the summer, but we do know that a lot of people leave and our constituents feel unheard when we do move forward. I appreciate we had a November opportunity, but just think through making sure people could participate, even if they're snowbirds or we have other stakeholders that might want a voice in that who might not be here in June, or it might be difficult to leave the house because it's too hot, those sorts of concerns. But Overall, I will say I'm very excited for the expansion of the airport. It's incredible to see year over year records. You've done an incredible job. We know that this is going to be an amazing project, but I agree, we'll just want to get it right from the very beginning. So thank you for your work.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, we're not, we want to delay mainly because we have a lot of questions and because all this great work has raised more questions. But we have seen, the airport has done terrific work on this, but also the last few years, and we want to get this right because we don't want to go back in 5-10 years and say, oh, we should have done that or something. And that will happen inevitably, but I think the more that we know that we have thought this through fully, that you can say we've used every resource possible, that everybody bought into this or mostly bought into it, I think will have a huge help moving forward, because you don't want to have people, not bought into this as you're moving forward on this 20-year project. Just one point on the June meeting. If there's a way to enable people to ask public questions, I think that's often helpful, because you can have the questions, you can answer everybody's question at once, or what happens is sometimes they're afraid to walk up to you and then they send the questions to us. So just a suggestion. Mayor Pro Tem, did you have another comment? Yeah.
So Harry, have you laid out what the prescribed plan is and the steps? Because I was absent at one of the meetings. What are these steps in the prescribed plan? What's the process? And where does the conceptual plan sit in this whole prescribed plan process? And when you present a conceptual plan in that process, how often are airports fully baked? That you've done traffic analysis, you've done assessment on the environment, you've done the sound analysis. It seems to me like we're not there yet, and it comes in the plan. So what is the plan?
So there are about 7 different steps that the FAA prescribes us, 7 different elements the FAA prescribes us to look at in a master planning process. Some of the questions that came up tonight are not in that process, and so
not in the process yet, or at all?
They're not defined in the process. So we're doing this under an FAA grant, and the FAA only funds what they define as studyable in that process.
If I could, a lot of these are in the CEQA process, though. So the noise analysis, the traffic impact. So everything that we've done, the 7 steps that Harry mentioned that we've done to date, got us to this concept. Those 7 steps are a prescribed FAA process to get to a concept for the future of your airport. Then in California, it's unique in that you take that entire 20-year master plan and you do an environmental CEQA document, a programmatic document that looks at noise and traffic and construction impacts and a lot of the concerns that you all have raised tonight.
Yeah. So it's not customary that we would have all of that information before we approve a conceptual plan.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the criticism about getting Mr. Bell the concept not sooner is, I accept that. We just got to this concept. We got to the terminal concept back in the fall, but we just got to the overall airfield concept in the last month. So,
how does community interaction play into the prescribed plan here on out? Are there opportunities at every step built into this plan for community interaction input?
There were opportunities for the public notices, the public houses that we had, and so we had scoped 2 or 3 of those. But there was also a feedback loop as well. So we've been informing people along the way via social media, via website, that they could provide comments to the airport on some of these things, and they have been. It's been a continuous stream of comments coming in over time.
But as we go down the road, as this progresses, CEQA gets underway, we get the traffic analysis, we get the noise plan in place. How is the community participating and voicing their thoughts in those processes as we move forward? Is that something that's built into the process?
Not something that's built into this process. It's something that would come as a follow-on that we would work on internally as the airport.
So what's the purpose of the conceptual plan? What is the reason why we would even be looking at approving a conceptual plan?
I think Ryan's going to articulate that better than I, so I'm going to let him.
What we're really looking for is your all's blessing to move into the CEQA process and do that traffic analysis, that noise analysis.
Based on this concept. So what
Right.
you've outlaid in your presentation for the public, I hope that's online, and we'll add it, but where the rental car facility is, where each item is, the very detailed slides you had about where each item is. So that's pretty specific in terms of planning a project. And so it's just normal. Our community likes to see these types of items multiple times. We're seeing it at the same time, just like the Air Museum and other stakeholders. It's pretty common for us to wait a little bit so the community has another opportunity to look at it.
Yeah.
Because it is quite a specific approval.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate that. Last question is, where do the cars exiting the rental car facilities, what street do they exit onto now?
So on to El Cielo.
Yeah. So we already have the traffic on El Cielo, and we're anticipating more traffic. We're not anticipating that traffic to be directed north, are we?
No.
The traffic is going to continue to be directed the way it currently is coming out of the rental car facility.
I would say yes. I mean, the devil's kind of in the details there when it comes to the actual architectural design and what that looks like,
Yeah,
but
okay.
we would strive for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think Councilmember Garner made a motion. Did you have a? It says you did. Oh. But I think the motion is to continue to come back in, and if I can I can say it for you, to come back in a month or so with answers to certain questions about the making sure the other agencies on the property have been, we've looked at their issues, the USO, the Air Museum, to look at the traffic plan, not a full traffic study, but how that would work, a master plan, a project manager and project team, how that would work, to look at a government affairs plan in terms of, you know, who is going to do that and how are we going to approach it. And it may just be we have to hire someone to do it because I don't know if we have it. To look at whether there's the public-private partnership for the CONRAC or the overall thing, what that might entail. And then I think also what would be really helpful is when we do these things to show how each piece fits into the long-term timeline. Because I know you've talked about this at the first meeting, and you've talked about it today, but I would always show when you do these over the next 20 years, each time, like, this is where we're at in it, and these are the next steps that are coming. Because I think, as Mayor Pro Tem said, we understand that you have to do the CEQA. We don't understand what happens next. And I think it's important for us and the public and the other agencies to understand that process. And obviously, I don't know, Ryan, you've done this with other cities, these kind of huge projects. So, you know, we're not reinventing the wheel necessarily, and it would be helpful for us to learn successes and failures from other cities that may have gone on. Because if we can replicate their successes and avoid their failures, we would be in an ideal situation. But I really do want to, again, thank you. This is a huge, huge project, and we are only trying to help give some more support and I think over the next 4 or 6 weeks or whatever we can do the next meeting, that hopefully the city manager can work with you and whatever other staffing needs you need to make sure that we can help move this process forward. Okay?
I'm not sure how I accidentally made a motion, but that's exactly what I would have said.
Well,
that's exactly correct.
We sat next to each other for a long time, so.
I think I feel bad for Harry. We're giving him this massive motion here. And we're asking for a lot of stuff in the next 30, 45 days. I think we need to be more specific. Just even talking about a traffic analysis is going to take them more than 30, 45 days.
I understand we can't do a full traffic study, but I understand that we need to look at like all of these different things. We didn't see where the traffic is coming out of into the city, whether it's each of these three. We saw where the thing would be located. And I think part of that, we all had the same question. Where does the traffic come out onto, does it come out onto LCLO? And
Where it does now.
But he said the devil is in the details, and so there may be other options, so there may be another exit.
How are they going to give us that answer in the 45
They won't
days?
have the final answer, but they will have the plan for, these are the specifics that we at least have to consider in each one. Right now, they're asking us to prove where the Conrack facility would be in the conceptual plan. I don't see how we have enough information for that alone, let alone these other issues.
So are you getting enough in detail in the question that's being asked that you know what to come back to us for?
I have enough detail. I think what we're trying to do, we're basically doing things a little bit in reverse compared to what we would normally do, but that's fine. We can work it out.
Yeah, and we had a meeting earlier, and part of that meeting was, the recommendation is we have to hire a management program manager. So it's not an assumption that we're not going to do that. I was fortunate to have the meeting, a briefing ahead of time, and I think everybody did. But in that meeting, I was told that this is part of the plan. The plan is we have to hire a project manager, and we have to bring on a team of people to make a project of this size work. So, can you restate your motion? Because it was an awfully long one.
My motion is to bring this back into 6 to 8 weeks, addressing basic issues as to how we're going to address government affairs, how we're going to address traffic studies in these three things, what the interim plan will be in terms of agencies and other parking on the area. I would ask that before then you have more discussions with the other agencies on the property, whether it's the Air Museum or others, to understand how we can accommodate their needs. Then to understand your own staffing, and then how the funding could potentially work. Understanding those are not, you're not going to have specifics, but right now we don't have a very good concept. So those are the things. Clear. Okay, well, then I'm voting. Okay, thank you very much. They can watch the tape. Okay. The next agenda item is item 3B, which is the approval of the airport master plan. 3C, which is the city boards and commissions discussion and possible direction regarding roles and duties of city boards and commissions, possible code of conduct, support and guidance of boards and commissions, and process for removal of boards and commission members. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. At the last council meeting, the council asked staff to bring back a discussion item with possible direction for the council with regard to those 4 items that you just mentioned: the role of commissioners and commissions within the city, support and guidance for our commissions, possible code of conduct for our commissions, and the process for removal of commissioners. Currently, the city has 14 commissions. We have the Palm Springs International Airport Commission, Parks and Rec Commission, Village Fest Board, Public Arts Commission, Sustainability Commission, Planning Commission, our Public Library Board of Trustees, Human Rights Commission, Administrative Appeals Board, Measure J Oversight Commission, Rent Review Commission, Architectural Review Committee, Historic Site Preservation Board, and a small hotel tourism BAD Advisory Board. Some of these commissions have their roles and duties spelled out by state law. For instance, state law generally spells out the roles and duties of the Planning Commission as well as our Library Board of Trustees. However, the vast majority of our boards and commissions have their roles and duties spelled out by city ordinance that's adopted by the City Council. A listing of the various roles and duties of the city's commissions is attached to the staff report as attachment 1. They're also located in the city's municipal code, which can be found online. With regard to the role of commissioners, broadly speaking, boards and commissions serve as the eyes and ears of the City Council. City Council members themselves are required to live within the city. Oftentimes, the city's professional staff members do not, and so many cities and counties will appoint boards and commission to serve as kind of local eyes and ears for the council. They primarily act in two ways. First, commissions help to formulate policy for the City Council to adopt, and then second, commissions then assist in implementing that council policy. So it's important to remember that commissions don't themselves set policy. They assist the City Council in setting policy, but they don't themselves make policy. Instead, they assist the council in making policy, and then they carry out that policy. That said, some commissions do have authority to make decisions, oftentimes subject to appeal to the City Council or call-up by a council member. Other commissions are purely recommending bodies, and then some commissions have a mix of both recommending as well as decision-making authority. Examples of those within this city are the Administrative Appeals Board. That's a board that makes final decisions that are not subject to appeal by the City Council or to the City Council. The Airport Commission, on the other hand, is purely advisory. They don't make decisions under our ordinance. Then the Planning Commission, they are authorized to make some decisions, for instance, on tentative track maps, CUPs, and those types of implementing decisions. Other legislative decisions, they make recommendations to the City Council on. So, for instance, general plan amendments, zoning ordinance amendments, and development agreements, those are just recommendations to the City Council. And again, to clarify, those commissions that do have decision-making authority should be making their decisions based on the policy and consistent with the policy that the City Council has adopted. With regard to support and guidance for the commissions, I think there are several ways that the City Council can provide support to its commissions and boards. Starting last year in 2023, the City Council, or the City Attorney and the City staff developed a handbook for our commissioners, and we started using that as part of the onboarding process for our commissioners to kind of educate them about their roles and the various rules that are applicable to commissioners. Additional support can be provided through training, either in-house or through outside organizations such as the League of California Cities or the Institute for Local Government. And then some commissions might have specialized expertise that they might go to training at specialized organizations that fit within their type of expertise. The third way of support is for appropriate staff support to be provided, and the city manager constantly monitors who on staff is assigned as liaison to the commissions to make sure that their expertise fits with the role and duties of those commissions. And then finally, it's important to have good communication with the commissions and boards so that they are aware of what the City Council policies are so that they can then follow those council policies, and also so that they can be aware of what policies the City Council might want to be adopting or updating. With regard to code of conduct for commissions, the City Council in 2019 adopted a code of conduct for its elected officials, but not for our boards and commissions who are appointed. So the City Council might want to consider whether it wishes to make the code of conduct or some variation of it applicable to boards and commissions. The vast majority of the provisions in the code of conduct for the City Council would be generally applicable to its boards and commissions if the council wanted to adopt that type of code of conduct for our commissioners. Then finally, with regard to the process for removal of commissioners, the city's municipal code provides that a commission member may be removed from office at any time, either with or without cause, by a simple majority vote of the members of the City Council. In addition to that, a city commissioner is automatically suspended from service if that commissioner fails to file any state or locally required disclosure forms. So the Form 700s and the semi-annual filings for the city's ethics ordinance. The council specifically asked at the last meeting about what the specific process is for considering the removal of a commissioner. And the city, other than what's in the municipal code, staff and the city attorney's office were not able to locate anything more specific. We did survey other Coachella Valley cities to see what their ordinances provide, and we found that generally the city's ordinance is generally similar to what those other cities have in terms of either a majority. I think one of the cities had maybe a supermajority requirement. They also had provisions for removal of boards and commissioners if they miss a certain number or certain percentage of meetings. But generally, the other ordinances within the valley are similar to the city of Palm Springs. I would recommend, if the council is at any time ever interested in bringing up the topic of removing a board of commissioner, that it would identify whether it's proposing to do that either without cause or with cause. And if the city council is considering removing for cause, that the council specify what that cause is in advance of the actual meeting at which the item is considered. That way, the subject board or commission member would be able to have an opportunity to respond to what those allegations of cause are. That generally concludes my presentation. I'm certainly available to answer any questions the council may have.
Councilmember Holstridge.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the city attorney and your office and staff for doing that work. We appreciate you bringing it back. I requested this item with other council members, so if I may start, council had created a number of years ago an ethics committee, and we did a huge effort as a community to increase transparency and ethics within the city. And then, as I stated last meeting, we passed special city council ethics and conduct rules, which the city attorney referenced, and that applied to us. And so wanted to make sure that we're acting appropriately with staff, we're following staff recommendation, legal advice as appropriate. I will say, I think right now the commission system we have is not working. It's not working for commissioners, it's not working probably for staff, it's not always working as well for city council. And I know that we've talked about as a council all of the improvements that we need to make. So I think that there's a broad conversation to be had about how to better improve the commission experience for our commissioners. I think, thank you for attaching our ordinances and our code about the charge of each commission and the jurisdiction that's legally given to them. I think many of those are outdated and probably have not been changed in 20 or 30 years is my guess, maybe since some of them were formed. I know when I served on the Human Rights Commission with Mayor Pro Tem, we had these discussions about what our charge was and what was within our scope, and it just seemed to me some commissions have sort of struggled to find their proper role. And so I think there's that broad work that we need to do. And probably love to see us, if it's within our priorities, to update some of those codes to really clarify scope and role for commissions. When I've been on this council for almost 7 years, we've had commissions asked to do all types of things, and outside of the purview of the commission, and then it's been on the mayor usually to call them to ask them to not do X, Y, Z. And it puts the city in a difficult situation. And so narrowly today, I think I would like to have the conversation about if we should specify the instances when, a commissioner might be removed. and or also apply the council conduct ordinance that we hold ourselves to commissioners as well, those parts that are applicable. Things like, not directing staff individually. I think it actually would just be a very good guide to commissioners. By the way, when I was appointed as a commissioner in 2016 or whenever that was, we got no training at all. We got no handbook. They just kind of put you up there and you were a commissioner now. So thank you to the city attorney and the city clerk's office. I had asked them to create and do a training program and a handbook, and those all look like really great materials. So we have come a long way, but we still have more work to do to make sure. And then obviously it's not a secret that it was in the newspaper about one of our commissions, and we just want to make sure that we're always protecting the brand of the city, especially all the work we've done on ethics and government transparency. So yeah, I might ask if council has an appetite for applying the code of conduct to the commission to give them more specificity about what their role is. I'd love to maybe specify when a commissioner would be removed, perhaps like violation of ethics rules, violations of the Brown Act, failure to follow, legal advice from the city attorney, XYZ, whatever that looks like. And we can get some of those recommendations from staff, and I'm sure council members have recommendations as well. Thank you.
Just to comment on that, we did, I don't know if it was just last year, Councilmember Gardner and I created where they're all required to go to a training session. Last year I think we didn't do it before they start, but this year I think that plan is to do it with the city clerk and the city attorney. And I would suggest that, if we have a code of conduct, these things should be discussed, because some of them people just like you when you were on 2016 don't know. And I think it's important. I would also mention that some of these ordinances are very old, and maybe what we should do is, over the course of this next year, is and actually work with the commissions on what should be revised. I know the Arts Commission has come up with several of them. The Human Rights has raised different things. Some of them are just outdated. So the commissions can also do that. I would also, I know the mayor is the one to usually reach out, but I would ask, I know we used to have council liaisons go to the meetings, which given the number of meetings is pretty much impossible. But it would seem that it would be good that if each commission had a council member that could be their primary contact, that it might be helpful going forward, because some of them, I've gone to several meetings and some of them are not sure. They write a letter to all of council, or they write it to one person that they know. It might be good to say, this council member is the main liaison for parks. This one's the main ones for arts. Doesn't mean you have to go to all the meetings, but that's who the chair interacts with. That's just a suggestion as well. But I like Councilmember Holstage's suggestions. And, the commissioners do great work. And I will mention, we did applications. We had 109 applications for boards and commissions for this round. We have a lot of interviewing and reading to do on those, but I think that's great to show how involved the community is. And we couldn't really operate as a city without the work of a lot of these commissions. So, so I support your request. I would like to add mine with looking at what ordinance needs to be updated, and a liaison. If we don't want to have that, that's okay as well. Do you have a comment? Councilmember Garner, sorry.
Thank you. We've been talking for a long time about how we can improve the commission experience, how we can improve commissions generally. Since I've been on council, we've talked about whether or not we should have as many commissions as we have, and I think we even did remove a commission, if I remember correctly. I don't even remember which commission it was, because again, we have so many commissions, especially in relation to other cities. But I think the big thing that we hear over and over again is that commissioners don't feel like they have any sense of what their role is in the commission. And part of that is that we don't have a great process to ensure that the commissions know what it is that council is looking for. So commissioners serve at the request of council, and they should be bringing forward things that fit within our strategic planning. So if we, next year, at the beginning of the year, we'll meet again to talk about strategic planning. That strategic plan should be then distributed out to all of the commissions. The commissions should have that agendized. They should discuss it. They should come up with ideas that they would like to move forward with that they think fit within that strategic plan. And then that entire list should be brought back to council so that we can make sure that we're all on the same page. That way, if there is a project that maybe a commission just kind of missed the mark, we can let you know, hey, this doesn't really work in what we were thinking, and we can create that open dialogue. I would really like us to see, I'd really like us to make sure that the commissions feel valued, that we are strategically using commissioners as well. There's so much expertise in our city, and we sometimes miss it because we don't even realize that it's there. And I would love to be able, when we do dig into these topics, it usually goes back to staff, and we've talked at some point about why isn't some of this stuff being directed to the appropriate commission. But we don't always know what that appropriate commission is, because again, we're not having these more robust conversations about what the commissions can do and what we can task them with. So for me, this is just an opportunity for us to really finally get into setting standards for what we're looking for. And I think there's a lot of positive things that can come from it, and certainly updating the commission roles is a huge part of that. And if it starts with the commissions, that's great. I want to empower our residents to be a part of this process.
Middleton?
Thank you, and thank you to the city attorney for bringing this forward to us, and for my colleagues for asking. Each and every one of us that is up here has served on a commission, and we know firsthand the kind of dedication and love of the city that all of our commissioners have. We also know that there is a distinct difference between being an appointed commissioner and an elected member of city council. And we absolutely want to ensure we are always hearing the honest, direct points of view of our commissioners. Ultimately, it's elected officials who have to make the policy for the city. We are better able to do that when we hear fully from our commissioners in a thoughtful way. What I think I have heard over and over again, and I certainly felt as a commissioner, is we need to find some better opportunities for direct engagement between the individual commissions and the city council, so that they're having that opportunity to give us direct information as to what are the issues that they are seeing and how what they think we need to do, and to hear from us in terms of what our priorities are going to be. So we've talked about a lot about this. What I would suggest is that we give staff more work, because they just need it. But that we look at trying to bring together perhaps one or two folks from staff, from commissions, and from city council to try to take a much broader look at this issue, and how can we better put together a system that ensures that we have ongoing engagement with our commissioners, and that each and every one of us, be it a council member or a commissioner, knows what the limits of our authority and responsibility are.
Excellent, yes. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you. A lot of good comments, and I support, I think, everything that the council members have brought forward. I'm in agreement with code of conduct, updating the council's code of conduct to apply to commissions. It seems like there's no reason why that document couldn't be the basis, in my opinion. So I think that's a good step forward. I think the handbook, it would be great if it included the scope of each commission. So that's clearly defined, and council is saying, this is what your job is. This is what your role is, and it's defined in that scope. That would be something a whole lot easier to do right away than going through a process of working 14 different commissions, guidelines and rules and responsibilities. I think, Jeff, if we defined the reasons that you could be removed, does that open any can of worms that we actually have a defined list versus the fact that they're serving at the will of council, and council can appoint and then remove with or without cause?
I think it would be important to maintain the ability to remove boards and commissioners without cause. I think what I'm hearing suggested is maybe an enumeration, a non-exclusive enumeration of items that could form the basis of cause. In other words, the council would still have the authority to remove without cause, and we would enumerate some list of reasons that would constitute cause. But I think I would recommend that even within the for cause provision, it be made clear that that's not an exclusive list, that there could be other reasons that would constitute cause. I would also recommend, if the council is interested in going there, is that we keep it as objective as possible. For instance, one of the Valley's codes that does enumerate cause listed violating the Political Reform Act as determined by the appropriate agency, so either the DA or perhaps the FEPC, failing to comply with mandatory ethics training, which, state law requires ethics training, but it doesn't really have a good remedy or consequence for failure to do so. So that code identifies that, and then also failure to file conflict of interest filings, which is what our code provides. And with regard to your comment about the handbook does provide a link to the municipal code where the commissioners can find their roles and duties. And I think we actually printed out in the written material that we provide them. So that's a good idea.
Okay. So thank you. And I agree with defining examples of how they can be removed. I forgot to mention on the scope. I think we should add I'd like to see us add just a sentence that says that the scope as defined by council supersedes all duties and responsibilities that may come before the commission. So if their actions are outside of that scope, they need to define their actions to be within that scope. Regardless of what the rest of the ordinance says, the scope is what their directive is. So I think that would be helpful. I like the idea of getting a group together to really assess, because it's a big project. It's a big project to look at 14 commissions and their ordinances for each commission, and then their duties and guidelines, their rules and guidelines. So that's a huge job. So I think having a group help with that is a great idea. From Council Members Gardner's idea, I think that's excellent. And also we need to include in there, the mayor made a comment that about communicating with council. I don't think we have a guideline on how to communicate with council. So I think we need to add that to the handbook. However that's defined, whether it's through, I always thought it was through the liaison. So we communicated with council through the liaison, or, I mean, our staff liaison. Or when a council member would come directly and say, hey, we've got this project, will you explore it? But how does the rest of the commission, what's that channel of communication? I think that having that defined will help too, is that there is a defined process of communicating with the staff liaison and then also with council. So I don't know.
Yeah, in terms of that, I do think that a lot of the commissions would like to have one liaison. The communication should generally be through the chair. And so that is something that can discuss, because not every commissioner should be going directly to council. But I would suggest, that's why I said a liaison in some format, that is the main person. So I guess presumably you could have anyone on the commission call that council person, but I would say it really should be the chair that is doing it. They're the ones who are directing that. And it's not just whether it's getting council direction, but if they have a question, that's who they should ask, or they have a project they want to work on. It can obviously, staff is their first option, but to understand council priorities, that's probably best heard from a council member. But I think we've kind of come up with a lot of good ideas. I don't know if this is enough to go on, but Jeff, do you
if the council would like, I can summarize what I've heard in terms of ideas that if the council would like to direct us to come back. Code of conduct, making that applicable to our boards and commissions. Maybe having the city manager appoint a group to review the roles and responsibilities, the ordinances, and the systems and processes. Bring back a proposal for council liaisons to be assigned to each board and commission, identifying a non-exclusive list of some bases for cause, identifying a process for the commissions to follow the council's strategic plan that's adopted from time to time, and then define roles for communicating, which would probably be best placed in the code of conduct. So that's what I've got. I don't know if I missed anything or if I've improperly identified them, but that's what I've got.
My only comment was on the ordinances, to the extent that some of the commissions themselves or commission chair be involved. Some of it is more specific to, like, arts has very specific ones that arts commissioners would understand probably better than staff. I don't know if all of them are like that, but some of them are like that. So each commission, there may be people being involved. Councilmember Halstage?
Yeah, I might ask if we want to delegate some of this work, not to staff, but to the commissions, or, up to staff's discretion. But it would be really nice to get the commission's input and have them sort of redefine their scope or make a suggestion to staff and council. For example, I'm looking at the Human Rights Commission on page 12. It defines the scope as defined in our code. I know Mayor Pro Tem and I both served on that commission. I mean, there are a ton of requirements in this outdated code that I doubt are being followed through. Oh, yeah. Well, the scope, but then there's the
specific scope.
Well, there's a scope, but then there's like the requirements of what they're supposed to do, the roles and duties. So this specifies that they're supposed to be, providing a report to council, and, review mechanism, and just like all of these requirements that I'm worried we're not following. And so anyway, I think the commissioners themselves would have the best recommendations about where to start in updating and modernizing some of these commissions. I know the Human Rights Commission itself started really as like a human relations commission. And so, it specifies a lot about like relations between groups and like racial incidents in the city, which is different than what it's doing now. And so I think we need to just really specify what these should do with staff's help and just with the commissioner's input.
Mr. Mayor, and members of council, it would also be helpful to me, maybe just to get a little more clarification from the council. When I heard the city attorney say one of the items is to have the city manager bring together, appoint a group of folks to work on this. Be real helpful for me to get some thoughts from you about what do you envision that group being? I'm not envisioning a lot of city employees in that group. Are we talking about maybe trying to select 5 or 6 chairs from some of the commissions that might be able to dig into this, or 1 or 2 members of the council? It'll be helpful if you could give me some thoughts on that.
Councilman Middleton, you brought that up.
Thank you. That's a really good question. Top of mind would be someone from city staff who could function as a liaison to the group and coordinate, making sure that folks are have meeting agendas, that they're prepared, doing the staff work associated with it, able to help outline some of the issues that need to be addressed. But I'm not looking at this being one where city staff is trying to direct what it is that we would be doing. It would be helpful to have someone who has insight into the commission processes themselves. And you've got a number of individuals on your team that have directly been involved with the commissions and would have an idea as to some of the things that cause commissions to work well or to struggle. I think commission chairs would be a very good place to start in terms of organizing this. I doubt we would want to bring all 14 commission chairs, so it would probably be a smaller subcommittee of 4 or 5 that bring some balance of opinion, views, experiences, and then it can't be 3 city council members, so it's really 1 or 2, and 2 would probably be the number that would allow us to interact and come back with a set of recommendations.
If I can just add, I think there's probably some items that are universal among boards and commissions, and so that is one element. There are some that are very specific to individual commissions, and I've spoken to people from airport and arts and human rights who are all looking at their own ordinances and what their roles might, how that it's outdated. So there might be 2 different elements. One is sort of broad scale committee working on overall things, and then the commissions themselves coming up with what their recommendations for updating their own ordinance might save a lot of time. They don't actually decide that, but they could bring those recommendations to council or staff for us to decide. Mayor Pro Tem.
Jeff, you had included in your summary notes council liaison role. I don't think we're asking to have we're asking for a point of contact at council for any particular commission, not that we're going to assign a liaison specifically to the commission, but that the mayor is going to be the or he's going to be the point of contact for Measure J and something else, so point of contact versus a traditional liaison role.
Councilmember Holstage, yes.
Thank you. I've been a little resistant to liaisons, and you know that. I'm open to point of contact. The problem is, and I really liked what Councilmember Garner suggested, which was a strategic planning process that then is presented to the city council, which is the board that directs policy, and then we give that feedback and it's sent back. I think what I've seen over the years with a direct liaison is I've seen council members move their specific policy item through a commission to get their support. I think if you ask, as our city attorney and city manager know, who have 5 bosses, if you ask one of us, you're gonna get different answers from your different bosses sometimes. And so perhaps the mayor could be the point of contact, because I think the mayor has like that broader view, and when I've served as mayor, we've had to make those difficult conversations with some commissioners and commission chairs when they're more working outside the scope or being problematic or creating drama or whatever it is. Not you, never. You did a good job. But that's my concern about liaisons, is it's just one council member. And then as we've appointed liaisons to extra commissions like CVAG commissions, whatever, we've also had, you know, that issue of, does this one council member, what they're doing there, represent the will of the council? And so that's why when we had a rogue council member, had to kind of bring it back to, you know, the council wants to approve policy, not one individual council member. So I'm happy with a point of contact, but I really like the idea of like joint strategic planning where they're working from a plan. Because when I was a commissioner, I think that's what we felt, that there was no plan and it was up to us to come up with the work to do. And then that's what, you know, becomes a problem if it's misaligned with
And
council.
I think that Jeff included that in his summary of task items, right?
Yeah, you did. I saw that, but that's the
Yeah, so it's a point of contact, but I will tell you, as when I was a commissioner, the city was not following the ordinance that was and I was writing to all council members, and but no council member was the one who was actually responsible for going to staff. So that's really where this has come up. It has come up with, and it's fine for me, mayor. I have a number of commissioners this year who have said they have regular meetings with me. And so that can rotate, and that's fine too. And some of it is just, they want to update it, or they have ideas. They want to make sure they know what the commission's working on. And I think that is good too. I think what may be helpful is, in general, if some of the commissions do updates to city council. I mean, that might be another way to do it. I know some of it says that they're supposed to do it in writing, but we get a Measure J joint meeting every year, but we don't do all of the other ones. That said, we have a joint boards and commission meeting next month, and maybe that is the way for the commissions to talk about what they've done this year, what their plans are next year, how they work with other commissions. 3 basic things that each one of them cover in their 5-7-minute presentation. And maybe that's one of the ways that they communicate as well. And that then council can then take, if they attend that joint boards and commission meeting, can then go back and say, wait a minute, they're planning next year something that doesn't align with our vision, and we need to address that. I don't know if I answered any question there or just rambled. Do we have enough to go on, city attorney?
I think we have direction.
Okay. Do we need to have a motion to move forward on that?
I think based on that conversation, staff has clear enough direction. If you'd like to vote on what I read as supplemented by the council, you can do that.
Okay, motion passes. The next item is public comment on non-agenda items. This time has been set aside for members of the public to address the city council on items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. Although the city council values your comments pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on the agenda. 2 minutes will be assigned to each speaker. Our first speaker is Frankie Espinoza, followed by Gretchen Gutierrez. Is Frankie Espinoza here? No? Then we will go right to Gretchen Gutierrez, followed by Jillian Peterson. After.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff. I'm Gretchen Gutierrez, CEO of the Desert Valley Builders Association. I'm just calling to your attention. Last week, I sent an email out to all of you on council, as well as your city manager and your finance director. We've issued our triennial fee study, and if you haven't had a chance to take a look at it, I urge you to do so. And specifically, what I would say is look at page 79. And as it happened last evening, I was at an event here locally, ran into your city manager, and he was very happy to say to me, gosh, I'm glad we're not number one. In this fee study, you don't want to be number one, okay? So we look at the 9 cities, we look at the county of Riverside in this study, and we lay them out side by side on what it costs to do business from the industry I represent and how much it costs to build housing in your community. And we look at it on a single-family detached unit model, and currently, out of the 10 cities, you're number 6. Now, I do know that you are going to be looking at a fee study later on this year and doing that work to look at your fee structure, et cetera. We are probably looking at increases, in some of your categories. We certainly understand that. But we urge you to be cognizant to say, we'd like to continue to be user-friendly to the housing community using this study to say we're not number one. Sometimes you don't want to be number one. This is one of those things you don't want to be number one in. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions, please reach out directly to myself or my ledge staff. And thank you again for this opportunity to give you this information. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Jillian Peterson, followed by Michael Joseph Pitkin.
Hi. I'm not getting my mail, and my mail is being intentionally blocked. I have several pictures of it being blocked intentionally by my neighbor. Now, what I did, I didn't react. I went to the city and spoke to Charlie at Public Services or Street Maintenance, and he put a red line in front of where the mail, that's my mailbox. It's a little tiny area, and I was really happy. And the next day he took it down. Nobody told me why. I believe my neighbor did complain. I don't have HOA or nothing. I'm just not getting my mail. And I'm not a licensed lawyer, but I know that's against the law. And it's very hard to tell people, yeah, I didn't get it in the mail, because they think I'm not telling them the truth. So I want my line put back, my red line. Now, I saw Joel here, he left, okay? Nobody gave me an answer why it was taken down. I don't think there's any laws, there's no CCPs, nothing. And once again, I have over 50 pictures of my mailbox being blocked. If not here, I know you can't see them. Now, on April 30th, when Jose from Street Maintenance came out to paint the red line, I'm not being a dramatic queen. The guy next door came out and assaulted me, and the police didn't even come out. All I want to do is get my mail, and I don't want to have to pursue this anymore. I've been very patient. It's been almost 2 years. Every now and then I get some advertisement, but I'm not getting my mail. And it's a crisis for me, and I don't know what to do.
Okay, thank you. We can't respond as part of this, but I would speak to a staff member, and maybe they can help you know who to talk to.
A staff member where? Oh, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Michael Joseph Pitkin, followed by Dr. Jesse Niemeyer Romero.
Michael Joseph Pitkin, for all city business and for every agenda item. Today, I ask this body to start collecting data and statistics for the United Nations with a new category, dreamers, those who are non-citizens. According to your neighbor, Los Angeles County Department Authority, United to House LA, Census.gov, USA Facts, there has been a consistent 10 million population in LA County. 50% Hispanic, 25% white, 8% black, 15% Asian, 2% all remaining. There is approximately 7 million dwelling units and houses in LA County. Of the 11 million dreamers in the US, 2 million are in California. Of those, 1 million in LA County. Over half are from Mexico. United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNHabitat.org, consisting of over 90 countries, state data and statistics inform every decision we make. These decisions impact every area of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Riverside County is similar in data, usafacts.org. It is time America starts recognizing data for dreamers in a productive manner. Dreamers are already here. America cannot have taxation without representation, even for dreamers.
Thank you. And next speaker is Dr. Jesse Niemeyer Romero, followed by Abraham Ishak.
What does Jeff Bernstein, Iran, and Rich Weissman have to do with each other? Well, let's find out. On January 16th, we submitted a Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, request to the City Clerk's office requesting communications and documents relating to the October 12th resolution. We wanted to see what led the council to pass that resolution. In the meantime, we sent emails to each of you requesting a meeting. Our first meeting was with Mayor Bernstein on January 23rd, and we asked what motivated him to pass the resolution. He told us that there was a large public outcry from the local Jewish population and that the city needed to make a statement. Well, let's check the receipts. According to the findings of the FOIA, Mr. Bernstein received 0 emails from community members before October 12th. That begs the question, where exactly was this so-called public outcry? While the city did receive 2 public comments about synagogue safety the morning of October 12th, 2 emails certainly do not constitute a public outcry, and there were 0 requests for statements supporting Israel. In fact, the resolution fails to mention the need to curb anti-Semitism. Another motivating issue for Mr. Bernstein was the nature of the October 7th attack as an act of terrorism and the scale of the death toll. We agreed with Mr. Bernstein that acts of terrorism and murder should be condemned. However, we brought up a hypothetical. If a terrorist attack occurred and a loss of life resulting from that attack took place in the Islamic Republic of Iran, would the City Council consider passing a resolution expressing its support for Iran? Just as Israel is a state expressly created for the Jewish people, Iran is a state that defines itself on religious and cultural grounds. Our jaws dropped as the mayor paused, took a breath, and answered, saying that yes, the council would need to consider such a resolution. What a slippery slope you 5 have created with your precedent-setting resolution.
Thank you. The next speaker is Abraham Ishak, followed by Mo El Abdallah.
Picking up from where Jesse left off, we then asked the mayor about considering passage of a ceasefire resolution as other cities were doing. Mr. Bernstein told us that the October 12th resolution was humanitarian in nature and a ceasefire resolution would be too political. Okay. We countered that point by pointing out that the resolution didn't use the words human, humanitarian, or humanity. If it was humanitarian, then why not use that word? That question brought us to another issue, the problematic nature of the language used. Steadfast and united support is a loaded term. Does the council steadfastly support an apartheid state? What about the other documented human rights violations in Israel? Does the council support those? As the meeting ended, the mayor agreed with us that the language of the resolution should be reviewed so that the resolution's intent could be more clear. Yet the mayor seems not to be brave enough or willing to have the resolution back on the agenda so there can be a conversation. If it was an agenda item, it would also be open to public comment. Is the mayor afraid of public comments? Through the FOIA, we reviewed an exchange between Mr. Bernstein and a Rich Weissman. On October 13th, Mr. Weissman thanked Mr. Bernstein and praised him for his leadership in passing the resolution the night before. However, Mr. Weissman also criticized Mr. Bernstein for the language recognizing the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people and equated them with Hamas. Mr. Bernstein defended the Palestinian people and corrected Mr. Weissman's assertions. Good on the mayor for that. But who exactly is Rich Weissman? The exchange seems to showcase a sense of familiarity, and one that gets the impression that Mr. Weissman has some sort of hand in the resolution's creation and passage. Sure enough, if you Google him, he's made out to be a political mover and shaker, a donor, a self-proclaimed consultant for politicians and campaigns. Indeed, if you dig even deeper, he has connections to other council members. Stay tuned.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mo El Abdallah, and then Frankie Espinoza is here.
Hello, City Council. Since the October 12th resolution was passed, this council has declined to discuss it again, even though I and others have repeatedly asked you to do so since December. That I am disappointed in you and your inaction is an understatement, to say the least. While you have all refused to add the resolution back on the agenda, the world has taken a critical eye to the situation in Gaza and has left this so-called progressive city in the dust. However, let's focus on local actions and responses to the horrors that are unfolding every day in Gaza. Last week, as student encampments around the country were being raided and police were violently removing student protesters, the administration and students of UC Riverside were able to come to an agreement that requires UCR to make the university's investments public. UCR has also committed itself to create a task force to explore the removal of UCR's endowment from the UC Systems Investment Office and to consider removing investments from companies involved in arms manufacturing and delivery. The movement on the UC Riverside campus was peaceful, thoughtful, and effective. Here in the Coachella Valley, Indio passed a resolution in December calling for an end to anti-Semitism and condemning Hamas. After calls from the community to amend the resolution to include a call against Islamophobia and to speak out against Israel's war crimes, the city realized that passing a resolution based on foreign policy was outside of its jurisdiction, and the council should be focused instead on issues which they have control, like homelessness and public safety. In the end, they rescinded the resolution and returned to the true business of the city. Palm Springs can surely learn a thing or two from Indio's city council. The leadership of this city needs to be brave, like the leaders of UC Riverside and the city leaders over in Indio. Deal with the hard issues, have the difficult conversations. We beg you to be courageous and to do what is right. To continue to do nothing is showcasing nothing but cowardice.
Thank you. And if Frankie Espinoza is not here, we have somebody on Zoom, I think Benjamin Delante.
That person is not available.
Okay, is there any other public comment?
No further commenters.
Okay, the next item, City Council and City Manager request for upcoming agenda development. City Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. As we look at the upcoming meeting agendas, I know we've had a lot of discussion. We want to have the folks from Lift to Rise come here and talk about their action plan and how that is working for them. We have that presentation scheduled. You'll see we have three more historic designations that are going to be coming before you. All three are public hearings. We'll get an update on the Palm Springs Disposal Services delinquent waste disposal charges. That's also a public hearing. And then we've got a DDA, a disposition development agreement with Neighborhood Partnership Services. And those are the Desert Highlands lots that we're trying to get in the hands for home ownership. On June 13th, we will have an update, we believe, from the Palm Springs Aerial Tramway appointed person from Palm Springs. And the city attorney has been working on a Picasso ordinance update for your consideration, and we'll be bringing the first of our two continuation budget updates to you on the 13th. The mayor has talked about the special joint meeting with boards and commissions on June 17th. That will be at the convention center. It should be on all of your calendars. We'll have a light buffet dinner for all of our commission members to recognize them for their service, and then we'll go into the joint meeting and receive presentations from each of the commissions about the work that they've been involved in. And then finally, on the second meeting in June, we will have another one of our Parks Master Plan updates. We'll have the continuation budget adoption and second update for you. And we're also working on a development agreement amendment for Serena Park, and that will also be a public hearing. That's it for me, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any other council member comments or council member Holstage?
Thank you. I just wanted to alert staff and the council that I will be missing the June 27th meeting. So I'm sorry if I'm missing the Parks Master Plan update because that's very important to me. If there's any way to have it on any other meetings, that would be great. I think it's pretty solidified, but if there's any wiggle room on that, that would be incredible. And then I just have a request, and I've made this request before, and I think it's on our council agenda, it's on our list of items, but I would love staff's recommendation because we're continuing to use work groups, we're continuing to use commissions, and we just do not have acceptable gender equity on our boards and commissions, and even the internal work groups that city staff are creating to move really important work forward. We saw that with the vacation rental work group that was created by the past city manager, and we had nearly all men. I think there was one woman on that committee. And so I love staff's recommendation so I don't have to appear grumpy and respond each time I see policy recommendations coming forward to this body that just are not representative of our community. So I know we're working very hard on diversity, equity, inclusion. I know that the CVRA, California Voting Rights Act working group that Councilmember Garner served on made some recommendations, but if there are recommendations that HR or others working on DEI can make for the council so that we can just stop this problem now, because it's a policy issue for us because it matters, as Councilmember Middleton stated, we've all served on commissions and then we got on city council, and if we're really limiting who's serving the city, not through our own active actions, but even the work groups we're creating, that is our active actions to create those work groups, it's a pipeline problem for whose voices are heard and who gets to serve the city. So I would love some thought to that. I'm happy to work on a work group or a committee or some sort of thing if there are best practices, but I just would be remiss to not say something as I continually see this to be a problem in our city. Thank you. That's just my statement. I guess I could ask for a policy recommendation to come forward. City staff, do you have a recommendation now of what I could ask for to bring forward, or should we think that through more? We can work together and bring something back for council to vote. Now we vote instead of just stating it. I'll make that statement today, and then I'll work with city staff if council agrees to bring something forward to have best practices for recruitment.
Is it something that we want to agendize for a next meeting for more substantive discussion, or no, or?
What if it goes to the working group?
Yeah, for an item for the working group for commissions to also consider and include, like representation and diversity, equity, inclusion in commissions. That's a great idea. Thank you.
Councilmember Middleton.
Thank you. I was concerned that I might have to miss a upcoming important RCTC meeting, and I asked who my alternate was and found out that we don't have one.
I thought it was you. You were the alternate also.
You're both.
So I do think we should, and I will definitely be at the very important June 12th RCTC meeting, which means I'm going to miss a CalPERS meeting, but I know where the most important issues are for that particular day. But we should agendize naming someone to be an alternate, and I very strongly support taking a look at how do we make sure that our community, that our boards and commissions are representative. We do need to be very cognizant, though, that the demographics of Palm Springs are not the normal demographics of most communities, and that in reflecting Palm Springs population, there will be some differences than what we would see in other places, but we want to make sure we fully and wholly represent our community.
Mm-hmm. If I can, Mr.
Councilmember
Mayor, I
Holsich?
believe we can make that appointment now. Do we need to, or should we agendize it for a future meeting?
It should be agendized, but we
Okay,
can do that.
thank you.
Yeah, and I just on the equity, diversity, equity, inclusion on the boards and commissions, so that I know staff worked really hard to get a lot of applicants and reached out in many different ways, so hopefully that will succeed. I also wanted to mention that Councilmember Holstage and I had our first Parks Task Force meeting. This is something we talked about a number of months ago, and we finally got it together. And this is not to replicate the master plan process or the commission, but to bring together different stakeholders in our community to look at parks in our city from really a 30,000-foot view and how everything relates. And so we brought together, we did have some park staff and sustainability staff and our assistant city manager, but we also had the chair of the Parks and Rec Commission, the chair of Measure J Commission, the chair of sustainability. We had someone from the Arts Commission. We had Friends of the Parks. We had people from tourism and hospitality. We have some other people we need to add into the group. And it was a very robust conversation, really on talking about the role of the parks in the city. And I think it's something we can continue to work on how we focus on, and also some bigger scale things. You know, we talked about amphitheaters, we talked about, branding. We had talking there. We had former Councilmember J.R. Roberts, who worked on the downtown park. We talked about how programming within the parks, events, and things like that. So it was a very good conversation. And I don't have anything more to add, Councilmember Holstage? No. So those are all my comments. And again, I just want to congratulate Mayor Pro Tem Ron DeHart on the Harvey Milk Breakfast this morning and what it has done for our community. So thank you to you. Pro Tem.
I've got 3 items. One question. June 27, the budget adoption comes in. Are we getting a preview prior to the 27th?
Yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, we will go, you'll get the full preview on June 13th when you see that. That's when we'll make our first presentation update to you. So we'll be able to go through some of the recommendations then.
Cool, that's all I needed. And I wonder if the council would support bringing back, increasing the commissioners on the Arts Commission at the chair's request. They just don't have enough people to do the work. So he's asking that maybe we, not maybe, to go from 7 commissioners to 9 for the Arts Commission. So if, and that's coming just that they just don't have the people on
That
staff to
require a
work.
change in the ordinance?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah,
Do we
so it
want
has
to do
come
that
back.
separate from everything else, or?
Yeah, they need support.
So do we have an issue that we've already asked people to apply? Can we expand that right now, or do we need to go through, update the ordinance? We're about to appoint people.
We don't know how many applied.
Pardon me?
Appointed later
18
on.
have applied to the arts.
Can be appointed after the resolution is passed.
Correct. We could bring back, that's, if the council's interested in us bringing back an ordinance that simply changes that number, that's a very quick and easy change. It will require 2 readings, but the council could make appointments based on the existing 18 applicants.
I support that.
Okay, thank you. And then another one that may take a little time to consider, but I'm wondering if it's council would support getting a resolution adopted that that in the future the city will not take positions on international issues.
I've been saying this for a while about national and international issues, so I have no problem with that.
There's 2.
I think the question is how you define international and what the scope would be. So, you know, we get a lot of comments, I'd say particularly people who are anti-LGBTQ or anti a certain, you know, demographic in the community who say, why are you taking a position on national LGBTQ issues, for example? So, and there's this discussion in the community, which I've seen a lot of, like, you should only be doing local issues, but, you know, impact on our community are local issues. And so I just think that there's a very broad gray area there that would need to be defined. Like, you know, we have a Human Rights Commission that is really a Human Relations Commission, but is like referencing human rights, which is a body of international law. And so it's not the scope of the commission, but I just think that it raises questions about, like, and then what's like the censorship of council, right? We're gonna get that criticism of, oh my goodness, you're wading into this issue which is related to international relations. So how do you define international issues? Is it international relations? Is it domestic, you know, international affairs? Is it, right, like, what issues does it include? I think for me that would be the issue, because Indio, we have public commenters who reference Indio. I do not think that is the model. That was quite an embarrassment for the city, and I think the council members involved in it. I do not think that is best practices. And so, you know, it really leads to like embarrassment for the city, and I think criticism on the city. So I'm open to having that conversation and like clearly defining. It's difficult when you tie the hands of council members who are elected by their constituents, and so you know, they're able to bring what they like here if they have support of the council or not, you know, and then our community votes us in and votes us out and can recall us, and that's the benefit. So that's their recourse. So I've watched us put, you know, more rules on us, and it is limiting, and I think it gives some ammunition from people, especially who might be like anti-LGBTQ, to say, why are you recognizing X, Y, Z? But I'm open to that conversation. I just think it gets really dicey as you define what you mean by that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying national U.S. issues. I'm saying just international foreign governmental issues, things that would be happening outside the bounds of the United States, our territories, possessions.
Middleton?
I'm open to the conversation. I think we need to be careful when we try to limit what future councils are going to be able to do or not do. I could be wrong, but my memory is that the first time this council engaged and received some criticism for doing so on a issue that was not local was when a prior Palm Springs City Council made a decision to oppose Proposition 8.
Yeah.
And that was a 4-to-1 vote, as I recall, and the one vote was someone who also opposed Proposition 8, but just did not feel that we should weigh in on any issues that were not specific to here. So this is going to be a tough one to get to consensus, but
Yeah.
I agree to have the conversation.
Yeah, so do I. Councilman Garner, sorry.
To clarify, I think that there are issues that are going to be within our purview because of the demographics of our city, because of who we are, and that's important. But I think there's also issues that come before that we care about as individuals that we might not have a lot of consensus on, but then there's immense pressure among each other to go any certain way when really it would be better, we would be better served on our own advocating for certain issues. But then at the same time, I think that we have gone through phases of being very, very political. That's taken up time from other issues that we've needed to handle. So it is, I agree, it's very delicate. I was in these chambers when we talked about supporting a resolution for marriage equality back in, I think, 2008. And that type of resolution makes complete sense to me because of who we are and what our city stands for and the issues that we bring forth, right? So it's all about the nexus to our city and the information that we have available to us, right? What is the level of information and analysis that we can provide, that we can get from our staff versus what we can't get from our staff? So I think for me, that's more about what is our responsibility in terms of having all the information that we need in order to make these decisions.
Yeah, I think it's worth having that conversation, and I think it is a delicate and different, it's a different issue because some things there are events in the world that do affect local people, but whether we weigh in on national is if it's geared towards how our local community, maybe that is the way to define it, but I think it's worth having the conversation. So I don't know how we...
I think it's really problematic to say it's up to each council member and the council at large to decide what is relevant for the community. That's why the community can come and give public comment. So it's up to each council member and then the council to define the line. Like Councilmember Middleton said, when you're tying
Mayor.
the hands of
This is
future
just a-
councils.
I
Oh,
apologize.
this is
really just to
deliberation.
add, yeah.
So sorry. So you're asking for a vote to have that conversation, agendize it. Sorry. Thank you.
What exactly is the to agendize?
A conversation about adopting a resolution that the city only focuses on national issues before the body, not international governmental issues outside of our geographic bounds.
Can I
Yeah.
make a recommendation that we try to figure out more detail about what it is that we want to bring forth before? I'm happy to work with you, council member, or Mayor Pro Tem, sorry.
And we don't want to have the discussion, but yes, I would
But
say
to
let's
give
come
more
back,
detail?
let's say no for now and come back with a more, if you want to come back with something that's a little clearer, then we can actually just vote to move forward on, because that's what I would suggest. You've heard the council's comments that they're open to it, but I think we need to define what it is. Anything else? Did you have a
Nope,
third
that's
one?
it for me.
Oh, okay. All right. Oops, I lost my page. So our next regular city council meeting will be held on Thursday, May 23rd, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. This meeting is adjourned.